Plat Chat Valorant. It's back. What episode number are we on? Episode 85, apparently. We got Mimi here, Bren, Connor, myself, and this one's going to be meaty. There's a lot to discuss. Even before we actually even get to like the EU and NA stuff, there's just tons going on. And Bren, you look like a human again.
I'm in the internet.
What do you mean you're in the internet?
I'm in the internet for
He's the ghost in the machine.
I'm not in person because I'm waiting for a package, and I've got my ear. I'm trying to keep an ear out, I'm trying to listen for the door because they keep trying to deliver these packages, but they don't knock on the door. So if I miss this one, I'm in big trouble.
Do you not have like a parcel, like a room?
They need a sign. I need to sign it.
Connor, I thought you were about to say, do you not have a man to look after your parcels?
Yeah, do you not have a butler that charges?
Right, do you not have a doorman?
Yeah, what's going on there? I don't understand. Do you not have someone that's taking care of you your whole life after your rich parents died via Calendar Man's machinations?
Goddamn Calendar Man. Dude, you were talking about Calendar Man for 20 minutes before we started the episode.
First of all, you were still detoxing for the day. It was not 20 minutes. You were experiencing time at a different rate than the rest of us. It is not
Dude, that must be Calendar Man talking. If he's experiencing time wrong, if he's thinking the dates wrong, fucking Calendar Man is bad.
You're time dilation man is what you are. Like, this is not the same time scale that the rest of us experience.
The potatoes has definitely set me back.
Yeah.
Years, I think. The brain fog is encroaching at a rapid rate.
The brain fog is going to eventually take us all, so don't worry about it anyway. Our sponsor for this episode that I want to give a shout out to before we get into any of these topics is NordVPN. You know them, you love them. They've been sponsoring all of our episodes for this Valorant series and the Overwatch series throughout the month of March. So yeah, shout out to NordVPN. If you go to nordvpn.com/ValoChat, or if you like just going to default URLs, you could go to nordvpn.com and then use the code ValoChat. It'll be the same amount of typing either way, though, so you might as well just type it in the first time. Don't know why you'd bother taking the more circuitous route, but you'll get a discount on your one-year package. You'll get an extra month free and a bonus gift that may or may not be the package that Bren is currently looking for. Whoa! I've just blown Bren's mind, and I'm sorry for that. Why would you use NordVPN, though? Because with a single click of a button, you can be protected from various different cyber threats, and also look like you're from what's the best sounding country that they've got in a single click of a button? I already used Bosnia and Herzegovina on the previous show. Luxembourg, huh? Yeah, I mean, definitely you could connect to Luxembourg. Moldova, that's an interesting one. That's got a good flag. Yeah, why not? You can look like you're from Moldova.
Netflix.
What, sorry?
I wonder what's on Moldova Netflix. I wonder what's on the Moldovan internet. I want to know.
Yeah, well, you can with NordVPN. So, yeah, shout out to NordVPN. Go and check them out. And, yeah, it'll benefit us as well. Bren, what's going on with you?
I'm Googling Moldova. I've got the Wikipedia page up.
And?
A lot of information. I'm not going to go through it. There's a lot on the Wikipedia
I'm sure that country has existed in some form for a long time now. So,
what do you mean? What's going on with me?
I'm just wondering what's going on with you. Wait there, though. Hold. Beep, 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 beep. We have some breaking news. Oh, my word. Sean and DDK have joined 100 Thieves with MikesHD. Whoa, this one just happened, guys. This one hot off the press. I mean, we're right on the button with this one. We definitely didn't miss it last week whatsoever. Don't worry about it. Yeah, this was the big news that didn't make our podcast last week because everyone likes to announce things on Tuesday, Wednesday, I guess. And yeah, the news that Sean and DDK, the casters who had recently made statements about quitting doing their casting jobs, essentially, I've moved into 100 Thieves. So DDK is the general manager, Seangares is the head coach, and MikesHD is assistant coach, I believe. And they posted, this like video where they were talking about their philosophy, this kind of stuff. What do you think about this move overall? Starting from like the org perspective of whether or not they're going to be, good pickups to revitalize 100 Thieves, and then maybe we'll go into whether or not it's a good idea for Sean and DDK.
Hasn't Nadeshot, I remember he specifically made a bunch of statements recently how the thing he wants most in his life right now, his white whale, is that he wants to win. He wants 100 Thieves to not just be the hoodie org. He wants to win the video game. And like, That's like his thing that he's currently obsessed with. So from an organizational perspective, they view these pickups as like, especially because Nadeshot is particularly obsessed with Valorant, like right now. That's like his real focus, I feel, as like an owner. You know, like obviously he's got other ventures, but it seems just like from his own posts that he is currently just obsessed with Valorant and having his team be good in Valorant. And I think he just views that this is their best step forward. I think from an org perspective, it definitely fits the 100 Thieves motto. Like it's a clout, and they're clout pickups. They're huge clout pickups. Like if you think about like the most clouded coaching staff and like and GM and stuff that you could get, like this would be it, you know?
Dude,
like,
when even your like assistant coach has a big brand, that's like the most 100 Thieves thing ever. Oh, all 3 of our support staff have over 10,000 followers on Twitter. Pick them up. Grab them up. That's perfect. That's everything I could ever want.
Obviously,
think of all the hoodies we can sell. Think of all the hoodies.
No, I mean,
no, but
of course that's not going to be the only reason. But
jokes
go on,
aside,
Rudy.
like they're all endemic to the scene. Sean has a lot of experience. He was playing for years back in Counter-Strike, and he's been watching and analyzing this game for a long time. He's going to be super competent as a coach, I can imagine. He's well in touch with the game. He knows what makes competitive players tick. I mean, it makes sense, right? When you can have people with a massive brand, someone who has already been proven to be strong in a competitive setting and will likely be a great coach. You have another person who's endemic to the scene and knows all of these players because he's been covering them for ages. I mean, it all kind of makes sense and pushes together. Even Mike's, even though he's only an assistant coach, I mean, he's proven he brought Envy to a grand final in an international tournament. Like all these guys have impressive records, and yeah, I mean, the announcement picture just says it all.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely what you want to see. I do feel that for me, the biggest move is
that was a meme,
GM.
actually, wasn't it? That Zelsis tweeted.
Yeah, it was Zelsis.
Yeah.
Zelsis has been also working fervently to not get that Twitter checkmark. Like he's been changing his fucking name and putting out all these fake announcements. Like this dude, he's like, "Where's my Twitter checkmark?" And he keeps on fucking trolling, like relentlessly, like just relentlessly trolling. And I'm like, "You're not gonna get the checkmark." I've learned recently after the bricked up fiasco that Twitter does not take trolling lightly. So.
What happened? Wait, can you tell us what happened to Bricked Up? Why did you guys lose your hash flag?
Twitter hates downtown Miami.
People don't even know the context of this, though.
No, there's nothing to talk about.
Well, it is actually a wonderful Valorant Overwatch crossover. But Connor tried to take the two worlds and meld them, and he was not allowed. The joyous whimsy could not permeate into the Twitter sphere.
Well, we do love downtown Miami and Brickell Avenue. So
yes, of course. Of course, the phrase "bricked up" is to do with downtown Miami.
Reminds me of that.
And it's not at all a joke that was spawned on the Plat co-stream about having a hard cock.
I wouldn't
for
know
rise.
anything about that. I wouldn't know anything about that. My lawyers advised me to only talk about downtown Miami. So that's all I know about.
Okay, I wanna ask though from the people's perspective whether this seems like a good move, because obviously Sean and DDK, they've had their big thing talking about the casting and the lack of like job stability and those big opportunities in the big games. They did a bunch of seeding games, all of that kind of stuff. I made a video about it. Everyone's been talking about it, that kind of shit. For Sean, it feels incredibly natural to go into a coaching position. He's already had massive competitive experience, and DDK was a pro player in the past as well that was able to do pretty well at Quake. But it feels like a very difficult task. That's what I would say. To be in charge of 100 Thieves right now, especially from Dan's position as a GM, it seems like a tough ask to turn this team around within a year's span, because you don't exactly know what like free agents are going to be available. You have to do well either in like a month's time or for LCQ, otherwise you're out of champions contention for this year. It is a rough ask, even for a talented lineup, which I think this is. Yeah,
I think we're all in agreement that you know, these guys being picked up. I mean, Sean and DDK, immensely talented. Mike as well, for the longest time, has been hunting for an opportunity to be in that team structure. And I think the position they've got him in, as well as the assistant coach, is one of the perfect ones for him. Where I mean, I know Mike said himself that he preferred to be from that kind of analyst role, and I know there's a lot of confusion in the scene in terms of what individual people do. But typically in esports, like an assistant coach is somebody who is supplementing some quirky strats. They're like cooking up some stuff in server time for the team to try out and pull out rounds, like the layers of prep, trap plays, things like that. which is absolutely what Mike is more suited to in my mind as well. You got Sean, who is in the head coach position, who you're not going to run into issues where teams in the past won't respect their head coaches because they don't have prior competitive experience. You're talking to fucking Sean. Like, the players are going to respect him, obviously, and they're going to be super excited to work with him. And he's also very charismatic, which is a very important and underrated part of being a coach, is being able to work through people problems internally in a team, be able to see from pro players' perspectives, but look at the wider team as a whole as well. And so, yeah, these pickups are great for that. And DDK is incredibly intelligent. The man, every time he speaks, he's eloquent, and you can tell he puts a lot of thought into anything he puts time and energy into.
Definitely true.
Yeah, the picks, I think these guys being picked up is pretty good. But you are right, Josh. It is a mountain of a task because you do not have much time. You have a very emotionally invested owner as well that's not breathing down your neck, but it can be a double-edged sword when Nadeshot has been shown to make kind of these rash decision making based off of this deep desire to win in Valorant, which I respect. That's one thing that you really want, but sometimes that kind of decision making can pave the way for disaster later down the road. And I don't think it's going to be the case where Nadeshot is going to be making decisions around DDK and Sean anymore. It sounds like that Dan and Sean have been handed full agency of the roster, which is a great start, but it's still a really difficult task. You do not have a lot of time heading into Masters 2. And then if you don't end up making Masters 2, it's like the last chance qualifying, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and then that's just.
I mean, what's the turnaround? We have like a week till Masters. There's 2 weeks at Masters. Like, you have like just over like a month and a half until the next round of ECT to find new players, to prep the new team, and to perform. Because if they don't make challengers, then they're locked out of competition for like 8 weeks.
Well, they have to go through open qualifiers at this point, so there is a bit more freedom in terms of the team, right? You wouldn't have to keep that core 3 together of Hiko, Ethan, Asuna in order to retain any level of spot that goes through to closed. But that also means you actually have to be good to get through the open qualifiers that are going to start.
I mean, that was my concern.
Beginning
Will
of
they
May.
actually be good?
Yeah, that's an incredibly short time frame. I also think about a lot of the people that have tried to do what Dan is doing. I don't consider the two to be exactly the same with Sean and DDK going into these positions, because Sean is almost returning back to something he's hyper comfortable with, whereas DDK is going into like a bit of a new environment, like a new challenge for him, and he's been great at being able to tackle new challenges. But I think back to a lot of the people that have tried to do those kind of things, of like the people in League of Legends that have tried to do it, or Henry G, or Moses, that have gone into these behind the scenes roles or kind of puppet master roles, and to varying levels of success. But I don't remember a scenario where someone's crushed it, where someone's gone from being on-screen talent to Papa Smithy
also
actually
100 Thieves. Actually at 100 Thieves. I remember when I remember that because I literally, he made that swap while I was in Korea. And he was like, yeah, I'm the 100 Thieves GM for LCS or whatever, or for their academy. And then like actually since then, because also I know because he picked up Gamsu, who's been playing with the roster like a lot. And so like I was just following that thread for a while, and he's actually done like a fantastic job as a GM with 100 Thieves, shockingly enough. Yeah. So I do think it's also, I think a big part of the situation, right, with someone making that swap, it's not like always one-to-one comparable, right? It's like it's kind of like the hand you're dealt with the situation you enter.
Of course.
You know? So like I don't exactly know the situations behind what happened with like Henry G and what happened with like Jett, because I think he was the Team Liquid LCS like head coach, not so much GM, but like a head coach for a little bit, you know. So like I don't know all those other situations, but at least for like the Papa Smithy situation, and now also looking here at the 100 Thieves situation, it feels like they've been given a blank check to kind of like run it the way they want to. And also in particular, like I think the support structure around like someone like DDK now as a GM, with you have Sean and Mike to like bounce off. It feels like you have plenty of level heads and experience and like knowledge there to not make rash decisions. Because I feel like sometimes like you could be a broadcaster and have excellent, like very good game knowledge, but you might not necessarily have had the organizational experience or even the competitive experience to like understand per se of like, okay, what exactly do I need to be doing here, right? Because like, or have that support structure like from a head coach, because like sure, you can be a broadcaster that has great knowledge, but if you don't have like someone that understands more of the people aspects or anything like that, like, you know, like there's a lot of different aspects there. So I feel like they have a very well-rounded.
The synergy between Dan and Sean is going to be a real strong factor for making this team work, I think, to be able to have that level of communication and understanding of their approach in the game. But to move on to one of the things that's actually happened in 100 Thieves, jcStani has been dropped from the roster, and jcStani posted a tweet longer where he seemed upset about the situation because essentially he had been told, yeah, don't worry, we really like you, you're a great player, we think you're going to be part of the plan moving forwards, like making him feel comfortable as possible, and then one day, boom, the rug is just pulled out from under his feet and it's like, nah, you're gone, with no warning. And it's not necessarily, from reading this, it doesn't feel like Stani is actually upset at the decision itself, just at the idea that he wasn't given any of that forewarning, that he wasn't, like prepped that this could be an eventuality, that it was just like a kind of fake chatter in his ear, I guess, about like
paragraph there in the second sentence.
What, sorry?
Told by someone with 100 Thieves that the plan was to sign me after VCT, is the one just before the one you highlighted there, Kurt.
Sure.
And that's just, again, the big issues where 100 Thieves, they have a lot of stock in the scene, like a lot of weight to throw around because they are this big org. They are investing heavily, but the decision making leading up to this point and the ramifications of some of the rash decisions that they've made leading up to this are obviously like showcasing themselves here, I think, as well. And it does create more issues potentially down the line for Sean and DDK to build a roster, a capable roster as well. You gotta remember that not only do they have to build this roster, a couple of the obstacles that would normally stand in your way is like not being given enough free agency to actually make the decisions you want. It sounds like that's not the case. They're going to be able to have free reign, but you also need time, and they don't have a lot of time. And also 100 Thieves have showcased that even if they invest in outside talent and bring them over, like it's all over the place. It's the kind of story that's being told by this org. I think it limits options in terms of what you might be able to pull from to rebuild a roster. And this just adds more fuel to the fire. With jcStani posting all of this, saying that he was verbally given an offer that he would be a permanent fixture on the team, but it gets ripped away from him. That is
an extremely classic esports thing of being like, yeah, don't worry, you're good, and then nah, you're not. But at the same time,
100 Thieves thing.
Yes, that's 100 Thieves thing as well.
But you would still think with someone like DDK and Sean at the roster, surely they would be like, I don't know, like
they weren't the
He
people
didn't say who said that to him.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't the people.
But the point being, they're like, if they're in charge of the roster, right? Like I would view the two people that are most in charge of communicating your future with you as a competitive player are your GM and your head coach.
Yes, but I think the point being there that when you're shifting ownership, like if you work for a company, and the new ownership comes in, you expect the boat to be rocked a little bit, right? You expect there to be some changes made, a different direction, and then once you've actually settled down, then you expect
you can't hold promises to someone's head who's on the floor. Like if someone's already out of the organization, like it doesn't matter what they promised you. Like that, I mean, that's just kind of how whatever company changes work, and specifically in esports, that tends to be how it works. I mean, it really sucks for Sony because he's a super talented player and he seems like a pretty good guy that I hope does find a team. I hope that getting fucked over by 100 Thieves will give him enough publicity to be able to get some good trials in. But the thing is that like this roster is losing, and it's been made very clear, like we were saying by Nadeshot, that he will not stand for that, and he will not stand for a roster that is losing and will do whatever it takes. So I think just kind of obliterating this roster from the inside is the only way for quick results. We talked about this on the last episode that like, hey, they need a culture shift. Maybe it takes new players, maybe blah, blah, blah. Or actually that was Sentinels we were talking about. But I think the same case is here for 100 Thieves, in that it's like something needs to shift. We've had this core of 3 players for a while. We've been switching everyone up around them. I honestly think you do need to obliterate the roster if you want changes to be made quickly. You need a completely new structure. You need a caller who's going to be able to work with your new coach. And if that requires firing people, so be it. Because it's been made clear here that the expectation of management isn't that we want this to be the big brand and we want the best players possible. We want a team that wins. That's what they want. That's the one goal. And I think this is the only way to achieve it. It sucks if there's collateral damage, but that's how it is when your job is a competitive player.
I was only surprised by the fact that more people weren't announced to be leaving 100 Thieves. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was expecting
There was
like
only
bye-bye
one.
Hiko. I
Well,
was
to be
expecting
fair,
like, bye-bye everyone.
jcStani probably has the least amount of contractual protection because he wasn't even signed.
Well,
So,
Bang
like,
as well, right?
theoretically-
The
Yeah,
fact
exactly.
that Bang has not also come out and said something kind of implies that actually they are looking to re-sign Bang, and that surprises me, because not because Bang is a bad player, but because I was expecting a full rehaul of the roster. And actually, this ties in a little bit to George Geddes posted that Wardell and Derek were some of the names that were being looked at for 100 Thieves, which obviously that would lead to them having 6 players, because, if we're assuming that all of the other people apart from Stani were staying on the roster. But what do you think about those moves as well? Do you think that seems like a sensible direction for the team to go into?
Yeah, I mean, Derek's a no-brainer. If the rumors about the Rise roster, the Rise org trying to sell their roster and they don't want to be involved with the team as much, and it's kind of devolved. I don't know the exact specification of what's been like reported on.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Rise stuff next, but
of course.
Yeah.
But in terms of the individual pickups, I mean, Derek's a no-brainer. The guy's cracked. I'm a tier 3 sub. I'm a simp. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, the guy is actually sickeningly good at the game. And for Wardell, I don't really know where to judge Wardell's place in the current ecosystem as much, because I don't know. Like, it's pretty clear that 100 Thieves either need to make a definitive decision on Asana's place in the team playing Jett as a role, or pick up a Jett player. And I imagine they're eyeing up Wardell because he hits the clout factor. He hits that checkbox, You're going to be able to sell a lot of hoodies if you sign Wardell. So it's like...
We don't want to sell hoodies. We want to win, Bren. We want to win.
Okay. Well, and then that's my question is, I think Wardell is incredibly talented. How much of his... He's been playing so much Chamber as well recently. I don't know.
He's been playing only Chamber, and
Permanent
his stats have
Chamber.
been really good on it. But it's like, I've watched their games, and it doesn't feel like it feels like there's a lot of like low impact kills that he's getting. Like, it looks great on paper when I like look at him. I see big number, better person, big number in statistics, big number in followers. That all sounds really cool, but it's like he's getting these against like Team Wreckaroo and Virius Pro. Like that doesn't say a lot. And I think that he has potential to be a high level player. It's just, I don't know if he's the person to like rock the bed and make 100 Thieves good all of a sudden. Because now I wonder about roles. If you're bringing another person who has a rather limited agent pool, like what does he play? Jett, Chamber? That's kind of it. And Asuna plays what? Sometimes Raze, Jett? Like, I don't know. I think the future for this team should hold trying to find more flexible players, trying to have more options around comps, because it's clear that's the direction the game is moving, at least in this current meta. I don't know what it will be like, if there'll be another big patch that shakes things up before we go into the next stage of VCT. But I think like variability in players who can play a lot of roles is the road to success. I'm not saying Wardell is bad. I just don't know if he's the answer. And I mean, if we're bringing in Wardell, if we're bringing in Derek, it makes me think probably Hiko's gone at that point, because I don't see what role you would switch him on over to. Would you drop away Ethan? I'd rather keep Ethan than keep Hiko. So I don't know. I think they're both solid players. Derek especially, I'm a big fan of that move. The question is, who are they getting rid of to make that space?
Yeah, just a roles issue, I think. That because like when you have Bang, Asuna, and Ethan on this roster, and then you're like you have like 3 flex players and so what's that can sort of play, and then the Asuna who plays like some duel, specifically like Raze.
I mean, that's why I think Bang is so good, because he's such a solid player and he can literally play every role, and he's super vocal in those comms.
I don't necessarily mind, like, I personally don't mind the keeping Bang here, right? Because like to me, I'd put like Ethan back on smokes.
Yeah.
Since jcStani's gone, and then if you got Wardell, you'd have Wardell play main Jett, and then like Chamber, and then Asuna is kind of like your other flex duelist, kind of like what you see from like Scream.
And then you get rid of Hiko, and then you add Derek.
And then Bang is playing maybe I don't know. You're playing double duelist all the time with flashes.
That's
you know,
why,
you play
that's
like
why you have to clear house with these players. That's why I'm surprised, because in order to fix the role issue, you have to drop good players. They have good players, but you have to get rid of a bunch of them in order to actually build a system that's going to be
I don't think there's room
functional.
on this team for Asuna and Wardell, to be honest. I think the roles conflict a little too much, and they're too similar of players.
I do not want to see Asuna. Well, first of all, I wouldn't pick up Wardell in the first place, but I wouldn't want to keep Asuna on Jett, in my opinion. I think Asuna Jett is like, it's hard capped. He's not going to be a Jett player that wins you an international tournament. He could be a Raze secondary duelist, maybe like flex if he builds out his agent pool a bit.
But also, I want to move on.
Yeah. You want to move on from the clout topic?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't agree with that take. I think Aston is skilled enough that if he dedicated enough time and had good structure and team around him that wasn't changing up the roles, changing up the IGL, I think he would.
What if you put him on a role similar to like Zekken, where you have him play like the KO, have him play the Raze, sometimes have him flex to a couple other like initiator roles like that?
Yeah, that's what I would like to see.
Also fine. Like he's a fantastic flex player, like an amazing flex player. But it just comes down to the roles. You got to get either a dedicated Jett player who can also sometimes flex over to other stuff and have Asuna now fulfill that role full time as a flex, or you put him in the Jett position and actually enable him to succeed so that he's not on a team that's constantly making chops and changes.
You could spend the next month until the open qualifiers just debating which way to go with this squad.
Exactly.
Good luck to DDK and Sean and Mike. Good luck with this one. That's a challenging jigsaw puzzle. One of the things that you mentioned, though, Bren, is that the Rise roster is theoried to be exploding. This was George Geddes again, I think, with a report saying that Rise's roster is set to... All of the players are set to go their own ways because they were in an agreement to try and get purchased by another organization, and that's ended up falling through. And the team recently, in terms of their VCT performances, it was nowhere near where they would have expected to make or were hoping to make. They didn't even make it through to the playoffs, despite beating one of the teams that went through to the grand finals. So, with Derek potentially being up there, what other implications do you think this has? Do you expect other teams to be in this kind of position too?
I think this is a unique situation where the Rise roster was already reported to be trying to sell the whole team. So it seems like they were trying to make an exit from Valorant, like the scene in general, right? And then the Rise players, it was reported that they wanted to stay together and across the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this team's success, I don't know. It always seemed a little bit too hard capped just by the inconsistency of Shanks and Poised IGLing as well. It had its moments where it was fantastic, but also just didn't really sometimes have a grasp depending on what tournament they were playing in. And we saw glimpses of them playing really well in the first stage of LCQ during the groups and whatnot, but yeah, it didn't really have legs. But in terms of the individual players, a lot of them are incredibly talented. And you'd imagine that they'd be able to find themselves on other teams very easily, like Neptune, Superman, Derek, Poised and Shanks. I don't know if they're like a duo, you know what I mean? Where they're basically shopping around for offers together. That might limit it, but also IGLs are a very, very limited commodity in terms of the wider NA ecosystem right now. So Poised also has a lot of value, despite the fact that I'm talking about his impact being kind of wishy-washy over the last few weeks. So yeah, this roster, if it does end up getting just picked apart, no doubt we're going to be seeing all these players across the board.
Well, the report said Derek's linked with 100 Thieves, Superman's linked with FaZe, and then it was talking about Shanks and Neptune being restricted free agents as well. It actually didn't mention Poised from what I could see, but you know, maybe that's.
Well, I remember there was something. There was a recent.
Oh, they're trialing Poised with FaZe.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was that Poised was also trialing with FaZe, and I don't think there's going to be any other rosters though that are like, because it requires generally for something like this happens because of like financial reasons for an organization almost exclusively. Because like there's no reason for an org to pull out of Valorant now because of all the interest, unless it's like a financial reason, you know?
Yeah, sorry.
Like,
when I said, do you expect this to happen to other teams? It was less so like a team collapsing and more kind of teams really trying to mix things up before the next stage. Yeah, like trying to sign some big players, poach some people. Like it feels like, especially 100 Thieves, kind of need to be throwing the bag around a little bit and seeing if they can pull from other rosters. But
yeah,
I could imagine that happening even with some teams that didn't quite make it. I mean, you've got like Hazed.
I mean, NRG.
Yeah, Hazed and NRG. I mean, what the hell's going on there? You know, maybe NRG are looking to make some shifts. I think that's a team with some level of potential.
Whatever TSM's going to do without Wardell now as well.
Sure. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know.
My question is, wait, we said that some of the Rise players are hypothetically trialing with FaZe. I'm a little surprised by that. Because I watched FaZe, they played like that like 20K tournament that Boom did, and there were some solid teams in there. Like most of the solid tier 2 teams were playing in that event, and they kind of like giga-fucked their way through that event. Like they looked excellent. They finally had an IGL in Poach, and his calling was really good. They had a lot of awesome tools. Like I thought that Fly and Shot Up were great. I loved Shot Up on towards the smoke roll. I'm actually surprised if it's true that they're thinking about switching players around, because I would like to see them at least try in the first VCT Open qual. Like, look at this. Like, they're beating solid teams here. Gen.G has been looking better than ever with Rhyme coming on in. DSM Academy has been looking like a solid squad. EG, sure, they kind of got boomed in towards the VCT. They're still solid. Like, I don't know. I like the Valorant that this team is playing in these smaller events. I'm a little surprised by that.
I think it just depends on what their GM thinks, because it's clear that like after their coach, after Trippy stepped away entirely, though granted JDM is now still their head coach.
Sure.
Like, I do feel like when you have the opportunity presented to you, like you can poach players from a team like Rise, and not even poach them necessarily at this point, but because with all the contract stuff,
have them for free, basically.
Potentially get them for free.
Yeah.
It's probably very appealing. If I'm Infamous, I'm like man behind tree rubbing hands, you know, like that, because like it's just it's not very often you can get players that quality, especially in an A, because of all the contractual like buyout crap.
Yeah.
Which two were they trialing? Supa and Poised.
It was Superman.
That's what's been reported.
Were those two?
Okay.
Yeah,
the ones reported.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean that. I guess they would move Shut Up to a different, more fragging position rather than just dropping him entirely. Perhaps,
I would hope they would keep him, but I also don't know if you're pushing him off that. What role do you put him on?
There'll be a lot of interesting moves, I think, that happen, because there are going to be people in positions where they really, really want to get into VCT next time around, because you really are limited. This format is a bit brutal this year. If you kind of fucked up the beginning of the season off season, this is your big chance to try and make something happen. Let's go and talk about the big event, though. Enough with the small little roster moves and stuff like that. Let's talk meaty fucking bucket of pie. Masters Reykjavik. Bucket of pie? That's like the...
Bucket of pie.
Bucket of pie? I don't know where that came from. That's just I'm hungry, I guess. Masters Reykjavik. The format has been announced after... after the games that were important for this format announcement. So what are some big takeaways? It's double elim groups with 4 teams in 2 groups. You make it through to a double elimination bracket, but the top 4 teams have been seeded directly into the playoffs bracket. Yeah, and that wasn't public information when the seeding games were actually happening. So I had a comment on my stream where I was like, dude, EMEA are just trolling the seeding games. These games seem so weird. I'm not going to even bother watching them. And then I heard about this information and I was like, oh, fuck, they're so important.
Massively important.
So then I'm like on the NA broadcast, like, guys, these seeding games are so important. You get to skip groups entirely. Like 2 completely different humans over the last week when I realized how important those matches were.
I'm glad they've incentivized seeding matches to matter, because I'm going to be honest, that tired, worn out narrative of the seeding. I'm tired of talking about seeding matches, and everyone was like, oh, seeding matches don't matter. Like, I understand that's how it worked in the past, but I want the seeding matches to matter. I want them to feel like it's not dead air.
There's been reasoning for it, but the team that you're seeing on your screen, the Sentinels as well, are one of the biggest buy-ins when it comes to like the whole I'm too cool to care. You know what I mean? That kind of attitude that they've carried when they were dominating North America. Obviously, they had reasoning for it because a lot of the seeding matches didn't matter. But yeah, it would have been nice to have this format explainer. As you can see here, if you pause it here, I mean, this is a great way to explain it. So the way it works is it's the similar group format as like Champs, and I think Berlin worked the same way last year, where you have this almost double elim in the groups. But if you are the number 1 seed in EMEA, and you can keep playing it as well, Kurt, if you're the top seed in EMEA, NA, APAC, I think, as well, and
the combined LATAM.
The combined LATAM, which is decided by the match.
No. Listen, the region that wins the last chance qualifier then promotes the team that won. It's not the last chance qualifier team.
Which, by the way, that's really fucking stupid, the way that they've got that set up, because that means that whichever is the best of the second place teams decides which of the first place teams goes through. Why you wouldn't just do that the other way around, I don't know. Why would you not just have Loud play against Crew, and whoever wins that game, they get to carry one of the bottom teams in? Why would you have the teams underneath them compete? Because that is not indicative of which of those top level teams is actually better. Do you see what I mean there? Like, if Leviathan are playing against NIP, well, yeah, just because NIP might lose that game doesn't mean Loud would lose against Crew. It's a very silly way of doing that, in my opinion. But
also, the way people thought it worked was even worse, which was the
second place team would just get the bye.
Gets the bye. That's what people thought how it worked.
Right.
That's not how it works. The way it works is the region that ends up representing more teams ends up shifting that number 1 spot. So yeah, still not ideal because it's weird the way they've organized it. But at least we know the format now, and you can see it here on the VLR page. They've already got it set up. So you'll have your other teams playing in this double elim group stage. There's 2 groups for it. The exact same as the way the group stage worked at Champs in terms of just the overall format, if that helps people put it in their minds. And then obviously you go through the bracket. You either play 2 games to qualify, or you might end up playing more than that if you go through the lower bracket. And then you get into the playoffs, which is going to be seeded with the teams facing off against the teams that have already got that bye. But that is a huge break between. They also showcase that there's going to be this almost like gap within the tournament itself after the 18th till the 22nd.
22nd, I think, yeah.
And so that's also a big deal because it means if you are this number 1 seeded team, and you can see them there at the bottom, you get a lot of time to prep, a lot of time to look at what the teams are playing, look and seeing what works. You get to see what the map pools are looking like. Teams are not going to be hiding strategies in the group stage. They're playing for their lives. So you're going to get an early look.
Who the fuck had G2 Guard and PaperX in their bingo card as making quarterfinals guaranteed for Reykjavik? Who had that? Who's the maniac who already predicted that? There's no way. This is a bonkers scenario. And part of the G2 thing we'll get onto later just because it's EMEA. But Bala did some calculations on this too. The team that wins could play as many as 9 matches. If you went right from the beginning of the group stage, played through, you get knocked down in the upper quarterfinals, have to battle your way all the way back. 9 matches. Or one of those teams that's already been seeded in, like the Guard or whatever, could just win in 4 games. They only play 4 matches. That's under half the amount of matches to potentially win the entire thing. For reference, we thought it was kind of unbalanced when Sentinels and Fnatic got to the Grand Finals and they played 6 matches and 4 matches. And this is 9 and 4. It's kind of crazy, the difference in terms of how often you'll see teams, and you will specifically see the worst teams more often because these good teams that have made it through, you just don't get to see them in the group stage. So it's got some positives and some negatives. I do appreciate the fact that it made the seeding games better, but also if that's not public knowledge, did that even permeate to the audience? Were they even watching those seeding games and thinking, "Wow, these games are so important"? I don't think maybe it will in the future.
The tie-in, because I was co-streaming the finals and people were coming in saying like, does this match even matter? And I was like screaming like, yes it does, it matters, please. Like start to change the tone of how we view the seeding matches, because I was just going off of the EMEA players tweeting that they had an extra week, they travel later and they get to prep for longer, and I was like, it's a fucking huge deal, it's a massive deal, like this is so important. But
it's just sad that we didn't know ahead of time, like for people on broadcast, for fans, for anyone to not be able to know that and to be able to like have that value. That's a little unlucky, but I think the format is way better. I'm always a double elim fan. That was, I think, the saddest part for me about I think it was Berlin that had it was the first one that had the groups, but then also didn't have a double elim bracket. It just feels like for all this effort, all this time to go into an international event, I think it really raises the stakes. And I think Challengers this year showed it. Like I loved having the double elim bracket for playoffs in for NA. We got a lot of really fun stories. We got some teams running it back, like having some big squads stacked down in the lower bracket. Like Valorant has already proved anyone can beat anyone. So it makes it fun, makes it a little less punishing for good teams who might get accidented or have a rough day. So I like having those second chances. I do fear that since it is such a long event, like you said, Josh, we might get bogged down a little bit with like the bad teams having to play like 9 bazillion matches, but you have to take an L somewhere, and I think that's a reasonable place to take it.
Yeah, there's still going to be some really good teams in those group stages too. It's not like it's not like, you know,
because there's some regions that don't even get a team on in, and it's like what you have your extra EMEA teams, you have your extra NA teams, you got your Korean teams. Like it's great. Yeah, you've got one of Crew or Loud is going to be in there as well, which is either way, that's great.
Yeah. So, okay, one of the big things though is that the winner of EMEA is unable to actually attend the event. So FPX,
your topic here as well, but people are going to be wondering, why aren't we diving into deeper detail about the minor region teams?
I mean, sorry, go on. Yeah, can you explain then, Bren?
I was just saying our plan is to cover NA and EMEA for most of this, and then by the time next week rolls around, we'll know every team that's going there, and then we can go on a bit more of a focus of the teams that are going to Reykjavik from the minor regions. But in case you're wondering, it's not that we're ignoring the minor regions and not going to talk about them. it's so much to cover and so much to prep. It'll be next week. So there will be people that are wondering that. So I had to clear that
Stopped
up.
Gut Zero from frothing at the mouth.
Yeah.
You stopped him.
Yeah, we will of course be discussing that. We'll be doing, hopefully the bracket will actually be out with like the full group stage will be released by that point in time as well. Yeah. So we'll be able to do like group preds, bracket preds, that kind of thing. We'll have like a big episode next week where we're discussing it all. But yeah, for today, there was some pretty important things happening. Yeah, loud as well. Okay, Kurt. Okay, I get it. This team's winning. This team's winning Reykjavik. I get it. Unless NIP lose their game and then Loud have to play through the groups, and then it's much more challenging for them.
Yeah, then they have to actually get sad.
I think he is, isn't he?
What, sorry?
Wyatt on the next episode?
Wyatt?
Maybe.
With the
I don't know. I don't know the schedule.
Loud?
I think it is Wyatt. He can spout some just Brazilian propaganda into our ears.
Wyatt only comes back for the Brazil episodes now. He's a Brazilian specialist, our expert from Latin America. Okay, so EMEA though, to start there, one of the biggest things is that G2 have that first seed, not because they won the Grand Finals, but because they made it to the Grand Finals and FPX were unable to attend. So it's incredibly unfortunate for this FPX team. They were posting, maybe even before they knew, I saw Doombros posted a tweet saying about how much they've been scrimming recently. They've been putting in a huge amount of work. I mean, we were all blown away by the numbers that the guard was tweeting about as well. And then FPX is like, yeah, we've been scrimming even more than those guys, by the way. And they've been blasting everybody over in EMEA with subs, with Angel on Jett. It's just been it's been a fucking crazy storyline for FPX. It really is just mad. And yeah, Baddy G, their sub, is tweeting, we're EMEA champions, it's a dream come true. And then I think it was literally the next day, they're unable to go to the Valorant Masters event. And they say here that it's because Angel, Xiao, and Sugetsu are unable to leave their countries for Iceland due to travel restrictions. And I didn't even really read the next part, that Ardis is not allowed to play as he recently tested positive for COVID as well, which is why he was out for a while too. So
no, he would have been able to play at Iceland, but yeah, he was out for. Oh, you were just saying that's why he was out, was because of COVID. Yeah. But he would have been able to play for Iceland.
They're also putting it down as a reason why they can't go.
Yeah. They were saying that was another reason that they're not able to attend. But
I thought it was because of Doom. Even if Doom Bros were to sub in, like they would not have their 3 core members because of the other 3 people being unable to travel.
Sure, no, exactly. I'm just saying it's compounding. You know, there's multiple problems here. It's not just the fact that their players who are from Russia and Ukraine are not able to attend, but also because their other players are in a sticky situation. So yeah, I really feel for these guys. It's the Valorant year is not very many big events. And if you win one of the events, but you can't actually go to Masters, that's a third of the year that you have put in a ton of time, a ton of effort, succeeded, and then are almost robbed of that opportunity to really show yourself on the world stage. It must be gutting for them.
I think this is probably, to me, the most brutal timeline for FPX, honestly. Like in terms of there's been shitty stuff that's happened because of COVID, because of Valorant stuff, like because of the COVID stuff in Valorant travel already, like with Bren Esports, for example, and all the other things.
OCE
but for this
teams.
Yeah, the OCE teams. There's been really brutal things, but for FPX, for the team, because the thing is, I remember when we first started really covering the FPX storyline and the artist swap to Jett, I was like, oh, they look okay. They didn't look too good. And then they went from looking okay to looking incredible. And then a war happened, and then the fucking artist got COVID, and they're playing with subs, they're playing with someone that's 40 years old on Jett, and they're winning, and it's legitimately incredible, the storyline for this team. It's the type of shit that if this was if we had traditional sports money, they'd make a documentary out of it. They make a documentary out of this journey, and the fact that they can't make it because of outside circumstances fucking sucks. Because that team was the truth when they were playing. The FPX looked so fucking good. So, just tragic.
It is tragic. Yeah.
It's just sad. Like I feel like this is even like this was just them when they had to ring players in and have people in. Like I'm not saying their subs were bad whatsoever. Like it was a fantastic performance. They won EMEA, but like if they had a couple more weeks to prep to practice to get ready to go into things, like I feel like the ideas that this team were implementing, like they were already proving themselves to be leaders in towards the new meta. They have just crazy player quality across the board. The calling was looking good. Like I really have loved the ideas that Doombros has brought as a coach. Even when this team wasn't winning, I thought they had great ideas. And finally, like for the first time ever, it's working. And then they just get giga fucked. And it's just heartbreaking.
It's a great point as well, because the FPX storyline, if you pull out a little bit, has been them having really cool ideas, but always getting pipped to the post. They were second place the entirety of the 2020 year. Then in 2021, they slipped even further. It felt like they'd kind of lost their grip on even like what the meta direction was. And then once they finally got in a position to win, they again get unlucky, I guess, with this stuff. So yeah, it's the silver lining to it, which I saw some of the pros talking about as well. It was like some of the other pros, like Boaster was tweeting about this kind of stuff too, was the silver lining from a pro's perspective is you know that you can do it, right? Like you've proven to yourself, you've proven to your teammates that you're capable of being able to get to this position. So it is a bit different to the past where FPX were like, they were so close, but they were never there. This time they were there. It was just literally outside factors that they can't control. So I think they should still have a lot of confidence moving forward into stage 2, being able to replicate this level of success. And the big question now for me is, as Liquid have been given an opportunity to go in their stead, what happens to the VCT points? I think that's a really interesting discussion too, because if you give them like the lowest amount, but Liquid end up doing really well, so Liquid have more points than FPX when they got in because FPX couldn't go. That seems really odd to me. I don't think there's a fair way actually of solving this problem in terms of points allocation, but something like giving them the same amount as Liquid and then they're like rooting for Liquid to do well. I don't
like that, like an avatar of battle for them that they've sent out.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how you solve this situation, because it feels incredibly unfair to give them. You know, you've denied them. I say you. There is no entity that has denied them this opportunity. I'm not blaming Riot here. It's a multitude of factors. Most being the war that's currently going on, but they've been unable to attend. If they also lose out on any opportunity to get points and their competitors, their direct competitors, get more points as a result of that, that does feel like they've just been fucked twice.
But then also for Liquid, if they do really, really well, and then they're like, oh, like you guys didn't actually get to keep any of the points you earned.
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is FPX would be awarded the same amount that Liquid acquired.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah, I'm just saying that like, I'm just also saying that like for Liquid at least, like there is like, sure, they didn't deserve to be there, but I'm sure it seems like they're pretty gracious in the fact and their understanding based off their tweets that like they didn't earn their spot. So to me, your compromise, I think, sounds the most fair in that like at least Liquid could not overtake them. You know,
I have a question.
Really
Do we know for stage 2 of VCT, is it based off placement or is it based off of points to get back into it? Like to get into EMEA VCT?
Who knows? Not a clue.
Because that's my question. Because let's say qualification is based off of points, then make sure they have enough points to auto qualify. If it's based off of placement, then they'll have it no matter what.
In EMEA, both of these teams have already made it through to the group stage next time. EMEA has a promotion relegation system where it's only those bottom 2 teams that go into a promotion relegation tournament with the top VRL teams.
Okay, that's what I had forgotten and was making sure of. So they're auto into that. Now the question is, I think the bare minimum you should be doing is give them the point of an 8th place team. I think that's only fair. They fought there, give them the bare minimum. I think that's probably the most realistic answer. I think the second option is what you're saying, Josh. Make it so that if Liquid does well or something, they get the points that they would have gotten if they were Liquid, and then you basically just tie them. And I think that seems fair because Liquid got accidented into having the event and FPX was in a tough position. I think both teams walk away happy from that one, but other European teams will probably be sad. And then I think the third option would be, depending on what the format is like, for EMEA for say champs, maybe you make it so they like have an auto slot into LCQ as well when that rolls around for champs.
Yeah. The precedent that's been set in the past is just to give them the minimum amount of points, I think.
Yeah.
But it was very different with Bren Esports not being able to go because
Yeah.
the team didn't replace them. They just played the tournament with 15 teams instead of 16. And this time, there is a team replacing them. So,
which I like that ruling, by the way. I do like that ruling because just removing a team from the tournament when you have enough time to actually replace them with somebody else, I think it's a win for the fans to have Liquid there rather than just an empty slot.
Sure.
I think empty slot is sucks for everyone.
Then if you try and get complicated with it where you're giving them points based off of how Liquid do, isn't it? Wouldn't that mess up the grand scheme of the way the tournament works?
Very possibly. Very possibly. I don't know. I haven't thought it all the way through to its logical conclusion.
We need greater minds than ours in charge of this.
Exactly.
We need greater minds than ours.
Yeah. So the other knock-on effect as well that you have to think about too is that if Shao, Sugetsu, Angel weren't able to attend, there are other players. I mean, if Mech had been able to qualify, those guys probably would have just been utterly screwed. And there's also Bravaf for Fnatic too, who presumably is not going to be able to attend the event unless it's a very different situation. Maybe Whippy would have run into trouble as well, although they claimed that he was going to be fine. Let's talk about Fnatic though for a sec too. So Fnatic, they qualify. Before we even get onto any, Brave F discussion or talking about what we expect from them at the event, the method of this team qualifying through the upper bracket was one of the best games in Valorant I've ever watched. That upper bracket game, Fnatic against Mech, the upper semi-final. This was the game that actually qualified them in. It guaranteed them third place. And holy mother of God, this series, every map was ultra banging, and then the final map was insane. Insane.
Fucking crazy. What was this VOD like, Bren? Didn't you say it was like 4.5 hours or something?
This morning I was like, I'm gonna catch up on a bunch of the EMEA stuff, and I listed like 3 games, and this was the first game was Fnatic M3C. I open it up, and I just see 4 hours of the a chunk of the broadcast, 4 hours dedicated to this game. So I ended up watching it on 1.5 speed with literally like skipping every second in between the front end of the rounds. And I was just sat there losing my mind at how good the game was, but also it was very comedic in its nature of listening to Mitch and Tom cast in a very high-pitched, squeaky voice. And they were making jokes and they would giggle at their own jokes. But the timing of it sounds like the kind of timing that somebody is really insecure that the joke they made is not funny. So they're like laughing so soon after they've made a comment. It sounds like they're trying to force a laugh. But in reality, it's not, obviously. If you slow it down, it's normal. But it created a humorous experience for me watching one of the most ridiculous games of Valorant ever because of not only the length of it, not only the quality of the teams that are playing, but also the stakes that were on the line to qualify to go to Iceland. Yeah. This match was ridiculous. It was utterly ridiculous.
Is this the round where... No, this isn't the round where Boaster wins the 1v3, is it? Yeah.
I think. Yeah, this is Boaster clutch where he pulls out the 4K. I just pulled out generic clips around because you saw some of the very best of both of these teams in this series. Like, Boaster is coming alive recently. I mean, he's playing the year, but he's been playing these initiators, and he's been having tremendous impact on it, which is not something we would really associate with him in those flagging roles. But look at him, he's clutch. Look at his cam. Look at him. He's going all over the place. I mean, get a zoom in on this one. Get an enhance, Kurt, enhance. We need to see this again. The man's falling out of his seat. It's insane. Look at him. He's a little wind up toy soldier.
These frags are also ridiculous.
They are.
These frags are just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And then we saw M3C just winning countless eco rounds to just pull back the fracture game. I think it was where I was pulling them from, and it was just rounds that you showcased like the not only the raw synergy of M3C, but their ability to cook up a game plan on the fly, even with like piss poor weaponry, to be able to win out rounds. And it was amazing to just watch the back and forth between both of these teams and the strengths of them being applied. Like Fnatic's post plants as well. They were getting set up in these post plant scenarios so often on fracture and showcasing what you can really do with it. It's like I got teleported back in time with the meta almost.
Yeah, This game, I think, instant top 5 game of all time, and also it's incredibly disappointing that well, I thought it was these two teams looked like the best teams in EMEA to me coming into the week. That's what I said last week. And I think FPX showcased that they are wizards or something. It's been outrageous watching FPX. And then you've got, your G2 who qualified in the first place. They have just been improving and improving. But I'm still kind of amazed that Mech didn't make it. They were 0.02 seconds away from being able to qualify via a crazy round that we'll watch later on Split. But if you think about it, even before it got to that, they were down like 10-3. I think that was the score. 10-3, something like that on Split.
Yeah.
And they had to win like a fucking crazy round with a shorty in round 14 to even get things back into their favor where they could go on this level of a run. Otherwise, it would have stopped way earlier and Fnatic would have looked significantly like the better team. But these Mech guys are outrageous. I know they're not going to be at Reykjavik, and even if they had one, they probably wouldn't have been able to attend. But my God, EMEA teams are so good. The depth of like the top 5 is outrageous.
Is this what clip was this? Is this Chronicle's massive balls just holding down B main by himself?
I think so.
Yeah, dude, it's just insane that Chronicle has the comfort in his own ability at this point as well. It's 10-5, and he's just solo holding down B main. And the Fnatic players are looking at him, pressuring, and they're like, well, there's got to be someone supporting him. Even if it is a chamber and he's got a TP to get out of there. Look at this. He's just swinging into them, holding down control of it the entire time. I think he even gets a pick in the end of this. This round also, I think, ends in a fucking ridiculous circumstance with the pivot. But
with a Guardian, by the way. Just with a Guardian.
Dude, he is so fucking... My Chronicle stocks that I purchased at Berlin and pushed have created generational wealth for my family. My Chronicle stocks, I remember when I was pushing that at Berlin, and everyone was like, I don't know. It's like, I'm like the Google employees at the IPO. Dude. You have some stock options.
It's fucking crazy. 401k is filled to the brim.
That guy's
You're going to retire a happy
nasty.
man.
And I am very disappointed that Mech didn't make it further than this too, because it felt like after this match that their back kind of got, and them and Fnatic, bro, this battle was so great that they were exhausted for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
it
this
really
is
honestly valid.
It felt like Mech got exhausted, and it was a Pyrrhic victory for Fnatic. They won, but at what cost? It just...
Dude, can I just say that I outside of just like the player quality on both these teams, which is insane, and the calling in the mid round, especially for a game that goes this deep, to continue to have fresh ideas and to be able to like implement them on the fly, crazy impressive from both of these squads. But I love like just at like a higher level the comps they're bringing and the way they're playing Valorant. Mech especially, like we see everyone in NA stealing their comps because they have such good ideas. Like I love the way that they're playing Split. I think the implementation of Defo on the Neon, they've played it before, but this match it was looking fantastic, and it proved that it's not just a gimmick comp, that they can get into these really close late round games and still find value from these weirder comps. We talked about Chronicle already, but I think the chamber role for him just fits him really, really well. Like the aggression on the extremities was excellent, and when you pair that with like kind of like an info heavy comp with just the aggression you can get from just having Defo push anywhere and instantly have info, it works really, really well for them. And then pair that with the already high player quality, and you just have like this recipe for success. But I was just kind of...
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I think it's mad that Fnatic won the game. I mean, and also looked like the better team because Mech Split is so good. And
I think they probably have one of the best splits in the world. Like
but
the
also
way they
Fnatic
play it.
beat them.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Fnatic beat them, and it talks about their staying power for being able to stay in this matchup and still find that value that late in towards a game. I think it speaks droves about Boaster and I just also about the comp. Like, it's a very different approach to Split that they brought on into this one. Like, very much more like heavier on the passive utility, where it was bringing in both like the Viper kind of double controller comp and also having the Sage for Brave AF. Like, it's so sad that we won't have Brave AF going, because I think this game especially was such a good example of him as a player and as an individual. I think the Sage added a lot to them. It worked well to counter out the pace that M3C was trying to pull through. Like, lots of just really fun ideas from both these teams. I know I'm like a big NA fanboy, but the depth of talent in EU is wild, and the fact that M3C isn't going is kind of heartbreaking, but it's also crazy that there are that many good EU teams that they won't be there.
Yeah.
Brave is going to be a hard replacement for them as well, just because we haven't really spoke about it that much.
Yeah, go on.
But the roles that he plays for them as well, it's it's difficult to replace someone who is a central piece of the machine that you have, the strats you got cooked up when they're playing the breach and the Sova for you. And maybe not necessarily the Sage, but it is so important for setting up your team for success with just all the util usage, trap plays that you might have got cooked up. To replace somebody who's just in that position and has been doing that for you, it's way harder than I think finding a replacement for most other roles, in my opinion.
He's also not just a crucial piece of the puzzle in the same way that every Sova breach on a top team is going to be a crucial piece of the puzzle. But Bravaf is also up there for the best signing of the offseason. In my head, it's Xander #1 and then Bravaf. Bravaf is incredibly talented. I didn't expect the level of performance that I've seen from him. I think Trex is also pretty good from Guild as well. But Trent, of course, too. I mean, there've just been so many, but Bravaf belongs in that conversation for sure, because not only did he fix some of the role stuff that was going on with Fnatic, where he allowed Boaster to focus much more on one central role of being like the supportive flex player for the team, but he's also just insanely good on Sova. He's fantastic, and not just the Sova, but he's an insanely talented player. He really is. I don't know who they're gonna get to. There was a report that they were apparently looking at Bone Cold, but then the players either they were disputing that it was true, but maybe the players weren't even told. Maybe it was just coming from some of the suits higher up. They have Otom on the roster, but I don't think Otom's going to be able to fill Bravaf's shoes just because of how well Bravaf's been playing. It should be a fairly heavy nerf to Fnatic
as well. Like, sorry, this is the round that essentially qualified them, because you look at this scoreline, by the way, they're battling in OT this entire time. Mech are ahead by 1 round. Like, they just need to win the 1 round, and that's it. They are the ones who are going to Iceland, not Fnatic. But for that, it just burst through. They have the presence of mind to be checking and clearing the players when they're hard pivoting around. The spike gets planted into the back, and they're playing these post plants. And look at how fucking tight this timing is, man. It is insane. This round was just ridiculous.
This is like another Brave. Just speaking about Brave and how smart he is, like backing up and not contesting them in ropes, making sure to keep the pressure on them, and they had to worry about Brave coming back for the reflank. It just bought so much time for them once he recontrols Heaven. Still, he's so late into this fight, but it delayed their push so long because they were re-clearing ropes, and then he comes back out and he's able to contest and take this fight late. It's crazy, that play from Brave. It's really good awareness.
And the time of it. I mean, they already got half. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing.
It's literally on land they win that.
Yeah. That's literally 0.02 seconds away.
They go on to win the map, and they go to Iceland off the back of it. This was one of the best games of Valorant that I've watched.
All right, then okay, we've talked about them and why they're so good. Riddle me this: who plays instead of Bravaf? Because we talked about Otem. What roles was he playing with Rix? He was playing fucking Phoenix and Initiators, and I was I was never really a fan of those roles. I don't think he'd be a great guy to fill 1-for-1 into what Bravaf was doing. Do you implode the rest of the team? Do you find someone new? I don't know.
Are they allowed to pick up a player that's already played for a different team in VCT this stage? I'm not sure what the rules are like. Because
I don't know, but let's say hypothetically they are. Who are you thinking?
I'm thinking somebody like
would
Trex.
Have made sense.
What, sorry?
Bone Cold and Trex both make sense for this team, right? But they denied Bone Cold, right? They said no, we're not getting Bone Cold.
Yeah,
right?
and I think Fnatic Mini both have Fnatic and Mini and Boaster both have very good ideas of talent that would fit for their teams. So I'm sure they have people in mind for this. It's just the question is, who are they allowed to pick up? I think.
I mean, surely Riot would be flexible, right? Because of this situation. If you literally, you don't think Riot would be flexible if people if just because of an extreme situation,
But I think there are some competitive integrity issues with with picking up somebody who is your direct opponent within EMEA. If they're, let me use Trex as the example, right? Trex is going to be playing with Guild against Fnatic next season.
Sure.
Are you concerned from a integrity position that you have a player that's subbing
I mean, personally, the corporate espionage angle doesn't hit for me, you
No.
know,
Yeah.
because like the thing is like the meta could change between then, like what agents role, like role swaps, like there's so much that could change in between then, and like it would require him to essentially be like, you know, those people that are born and they have like perfect memory and they can remember everything. Like that's essentially what Trex would have. Trex would have to download the entirety of Fnatic and like scribble all the
And
notes
I don't
down
think Fnatic
and
is a
bring it
team
back
that
to
has like
Guild.
some like secret sauce hidden away in their vault. That
Yeah,
just,
it's like
playing with
because
them is going to be able to make
50%
you
of the
beat them.
game is just like more, if not more than 50% of this game is just based off the individual talent of the players
Yeah.
and not just your actual like strats and game plans, right?
And like you said, meta shifts so much, it probably won't be the same.
I
game
find it
every
highly
time.
unlikely that would matter. And for this situation, like it's to me, it seems a little like obviously I get it if the end result is like, no, we can't, you're not allowed to use Trex, but like it's different than like FPX, right? Where it's like a whole new team, but it's just one player.
Yeah.
It's
But
one
I don't know
player.
if they could, even if they, let's say they were allowed to bring Trex, I don't know if they'd be able to get him because he's a Russian player. Will he be able to be
Yeah,
allowed? Like
I'm-
the travel stuff has already been so tough.
I'm not really nominating him, and in fact, I'd forgotten where he was even from. So yeah, that would be profoundly stupid, wouldn't it? But
Yeah.
if you, there will be other players in EMEA that would make for somewhat decent pickups. I think
Sure.
it's tough though. It is going to be difficult. I think Boaster tweeted after they lost, so they beat Mech, and we were talking about how it felt a bit like a Pyrrhic victory because they just got rolled after that. They got 13-0'd against FPX, right? And then they went into the game against, was that against FPX? I think it was.
It was on split. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they went into the game against G2, lost 3-0. The players looked a little limp. These were the seeding games where I didn't know how important it was to get first seed at this point. And so I honestly, I watched some of these games and just thought, well, this doesn't look like the same Fnatic to me at all. So I just kind of zoned out while I was watching them and just assumed the stakes were small. But in fact, these were important games. And I would love to know what Fnatic think the problems were here, because it really did look like a totally different squad in terms of their like motivation, their proactivity, the individual performances. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, Boaster tweeted after this saying, we're back to being the, what did he say? Back to being the underdogs or something like that, back to being underrated. But that's not how I think about this at all. I still think that Fnatic have, there we go, back to being
Top
underdogs,
21
the top
Jett
21
and
Jett and friends, which is, that's a dig at us specifically.
That
but
is.
I still, if I'm gonna like rank players heading in, Durka is absolutely up at the top for his. Okay, the performances in those seeding games were fairly poor, but everything he's done for the rest of the year since Champions and including Champions has been insane. And this team looks awesome in the games that got them to the event. So I still rate this team really fucking highly. Yeah, they're not going to be like guaranteed to the playoffs, but unless they have an insanely difficult group stage, I think they could even go deeper than G2, who are perma-booked into the playoffs. I don't think that's crazy at all.
Yeah. I imagine as well, once they've qualified after that match, that's when they start working out logistics, and they probably found out shortly afterwards that Brave wouldn't be able to go.
Yeah, that could be a factor.
That's just, again, pure speculation on my part. I don't know if it was or played a part in their matches, but I can only imagine it would if you then started to work out, flights, logistics, what's going on for you going to the country, and then you find out, oh, actually one of the core pieces as to why we even made it there can't play with us, and you're figuring out that on top with all the stress.
Yeah, pretty brutal for them, but still a very fun team to follow. And it's just, I love watching Boaster. I love watching him. He's such an emotive player.
Boaster.
It's going to be amazing to see him at Iceland on the stage playing against other people. Please stop coming to the A-bomb site on Split, he tweets. I know I'm there, but please, I can't hold it.
You guys me up, man.
He's the exact type of personality you need in like a burgeoning esports scene, of like building those legends and mythos early. And like also, unlike comparatively to most, like I feel like big personalities in esports, a lot of big personalities wash out because they're just not good enough generally. Like they just can't keep up the schedule. Like they don't have the individual talent as much, but they have great personalities. Boaster seems to be one of those few cases where he has both. He is that good. And
Well,
he
he's
also
getting
does
better.
have
He's like the
personality.
good Christian EMEA family-friendly vanity.
So the other team then that was able to, they are now the number one seeds with the FPX dropping out, with them making it to the Grand Finals. G2 and Mixwell. This is another absurd storyline, I think. We've got so many, with the Guard being able to qualify, with, you know, FPX's insane run, even though they're not actually there, but like all of the adversity that they've had to go through. And then G2, this team looked like it was just making some clowny moves in the offseason, rotating their roster around so much, but they hit a period where they were playing against Guild. That was when they played against Guild and Ascend in the group stage. That was when I started to think, okay, this team actually is cooking something up. With Nuki, and at that point, Nuki was hard carrying them as well on Raze. And now Nuki is still not putting in... He's not putting in, like, unbelievable god-tier performances. He's just playing extremely, extremely well. But the whole system, the calling, Meadows stepped up massively. This team has really improved from what they looked like in those opening weeks. Like 2 months ago, G2 were looking like a mess. And they've...
It's ridiculous.
Now they're the first seed. They're guaranteed playoffs.
You're not telling me that Meadows swapping roles, the team bringing Mixwell in and having all these issues with understanding like the roles as well and how that plays out. Nuki as well having to IGL for them as the player who is often, you know, carrying a tremendous amount of responsibility on his shoulders to actually pop off in the maps. You're telling me this team has come together right here, right now to make Iceland? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Look at the fucking numbers.
He's IGLing. He's IGLing, by the way.
He's putting up. He's right at fucking top, man. It reminds me, and it gives me hope. And I hate that. I hate that it gives me hope because it's like the same kind of hope I felt about G2, like coming into Berlin. And to be fair,
they did beat Sentinels.
They beat Sentinels and they started playing really well, but then obviously they fell short. I think when they got to the actual playoffs of that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, but they beat. I think they beat Crew in the quarters, didn't they? And they made it to semis.
I'm gonna go take a look at this now because I can't remember.
I thought G2 got a really good quarters matchup against Crew and made it to the semifinals. That's what I seem to remember. Yeah, they lost in the semis to Gambit.
There you go. Yeah, they lost to Gambit.
Yeah.
So I misremember.
That is a really good run, making top 4 of Berlin.
Yeah.
Yes. The bracket was a little easier, arguably.
Yeah, their bracket was much easier until essentially they hit Crew.
And here's what the similarities of that G2 to this G2, the only similarities I'm really drawing in my mind is just the unexpected element of them doing this.
Well, I would draw another analogy too, which is they look phenomenal the second time playing a team. Do you remember at Berlin when they played Sentinels the first time and they had a really good plan for Icebox and then they got kind of boomed on some other places and then they adjusted the second time around and a lot of the conversation was like, Sentinels don't really care about that matchup the second time around because it was that weird round-robin group that Team Bren couldn't go to. But honestly, what it came down to for me was G2 had insane adaptation the second time around. The players made smart adjustments. They counter-stratted. They crushed. When I'm watching them in this bracket too, every time they play somebody the second time around, they look god tier compared to the first time. Who was it specifically that I was thinking about? It was... They were really struggling against someone's burst executes.
Are you referring to Liquid? Because they played Liquid twice.
Liquid, yes, that's what it was.
Because the
Yampi
game was like bursting on the site. And
holy mother of God, they looked insanely better. So the first time on Split, okay, Team Liquid kind of rolled them, and it wasn't Team Liquid doing anything too crazy. They were just going into the B site, hitting a bunch of shots, and rolling Avova, who couldn't hold on B at all. Avova like fucking tweeting this kind of stuff. And then the second time they play it, you can see Avova was smoking back in better positions, like adjusting it. They're so good.
I have a clip of Avova's anchoring as well. Yeah, from the second time around where they played it. It's on Split. But there were multiple examples that you could pull from the Split as well. I mean, I don't know if we can pull the clip. Did I send it in? I think I did.
I mean, G2 just dominated them they dominated them that whole series. So.
Yeah. But also, I think
Avova anchoring Craigasm.
Yeah, the Avova anchoring, the smoke, he was previously, the first time they played, just smoking B main and trying to just hold default, and he was just standing until he was the last man there. And this time he had these like deeper smokes that were good adjustments on both A and B, and he was just locking that shit down, making it so much more difficult for Liquid.
And I don't think we've seen, particularly from like Brim players, I don't think we've seen a lot of these deep smokes on site to like debate to like force deny like the site a lot. Like I don't think we've seen this like a lot, especially like on B when like generally almost everyone just default smokes and making sure you have no vision when you come in. And those like really, really deep smokes like close to the bomb, I don't know if I've seen that very often from anchors. You know, I feel like that's like relatively unique compared to a lot of smokers. I don't feel like we've seen that often at all.
People do that quite a lot with Omen or Astra, where they'll throw a smoke to play
Brim,
inside. But Brim smokes are so claustrophobic if you're inside them. You lose all of this.
Yeah,
I don't know
they're playing. I
don't know what it really is, but the fact that they're filled with smoke on the inside makes it more annoying to play inside.
It's harder to gather your senses of when you're going to pop out of it, which makes it hard to play inside.
Hard to see the edges, hard to see people who are like tipping their toes
I think it was a really cool way to play it because it's not something that we've seen a lot of Brim players do comparatively. Because like it wasn't like he was lurking it; he was literally just doing it to split the sights and like have someone else hold the angle off of his smoke as well. So like it was just cool. It was a cool way to play it.
I really like the way they play their icebox too for this team. Like I think their comp is pretty base. Like most teams are still like super into the duelists on this map for like no reason. I think icebox is one of the best maps for if you want to get funky, if you want to go no duelist, especially with the change, it works well for that. Like you'd think with a comp like this, their attack side would be rough, but no, like Mixwell, he's had such a market improvement for this team. And I think his chamber play on that map specifically was absolutely stellar. Like, sure, he didn't have the craziest performance, like popping off as an individual, but he did a great job taking space. And then just like the supportive line, like we talked about it, but Meadow and Nukia, like even the support players on this roster are just nuts tier individuals. So being able to kind of flex a comp that plays that well and also just gives them giga utility for their defense is really fun. And I like the ideas they're bringing. And I mean, obviously, like the players themselves have distinctly improved since previous showings for G2. I don't know if I have them as like a super duper top contender going on it, but I don't know. I'm still excited to watch them internationally.
Look at this.
This is so dumb. This is so dumb. Dude, there it is. Wait, the middle finger? There it is. I love G2. The G2 social media game is also so funny from this because all the middle finger memes that occurred like from this moment. Is so funny. So fucking funny. I actually believe in G2 a lot more heading into Iceland than I did in Berlin. Like from this roster iteration. Like in Berlin, it felt like it was like the Kellock show, like Kellock's and Nuki show, but it feels like they actually are a complete team.
Well, it's so surprising to me. I don't know. You just don't expect it, man. The musical chairs with Mixwell in and out, and now it just seems like the fact that they have just made a concrete decision that Mixwell is in this roster, and it's like, you guys, not necessarily you have to deal with it. Like Mixwell's like this, oh, come on, grandpa, I got to drag you along now to Iceland. You know, it's not like that, but it's more, I think just the concrete decision that this is the roster you're going with has just added stability into the roster. And now Mixwell is playing the chamber and is finding great effectiveness with it as well. It's really quite magical to watch, and it does give me a lot of hope for G2 moving into the tournament.
It's also just so unusual that you've got like it's a esports classic for a team to say, "Fuck it, we don't need an IGL. I'll just do it." That is such an esports classic. And this team has actually struggled with that a lot in their history. The fact Nuki's been able to make it work to me is just outrageous. I've got him at the top of my list right now in terms of like players coming into Reykjavik. I think he's currently looking like the best player in the world because he's also been able to IGL, but it's not just that. He like IGLs the team around himself. Like the round that we just watched on Split, he's going for a flank and he's like coming to his team to just delay, gets behind them. And the only reason he's able to get that spray down is because he's like the rest of his team's bought enough time for them to not be thinking about his flank whatsoever. And he gets there so fast just as they're setting up.
They have such a good idea. Again, it's like the calling to be able to take that snowman position, like the deep wall, the deep take of the side when they get B. It's because they know that Liquid are just running these op setups on the retake, and they know that they deny them the space, so they can't even play the op retakes from snowman, where you typically would be just letting the players in. It's always thinking ahead about what they were doing with the calling, but it's very quick adjustments on the fly. It's not necessarily stuff that they've planned ahead of time. It's just they understand how to play into the win cons of the enemies.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm big on them in double elim. I am big on them in double elim because I think their rebound potential is huge. So the final team that's heading from EMEA has been given a bit of a second chance, a second life. And they are going to be able to come back to Iceland. It's Team Liquid. I think whoever was mentioning this earlier, they have been pretty humble about it on Twitter. That they know that. Yeah, Connor was saying they were tweeting that we know we haven't earned this, but we're going to try and live up to it. We're thankful for the opportunity, and we've gone through a lot of the stuff and like tried to figure out what we need to do to rebuild. But it does feel like, I mean, it's liquid luck, isn't it, that they've managed to just stumble into this position.
Before we dive into like clips, I wanted to play the clip from Sliggy's co-stream of him talking about what he thought the issues were of Liquid. And this is after they were knocked out. And this is after obviously he thought, this is after he knew that they were going to be going to Iceland. Or sorry, before.
Before.
Make sure that that's quite important. That's an important clarification. But it adds a lens to look at their overall play. Because in the clip, it might be a bit too much to just listen to him, but he's just talking very generally.
Play it.
How long is it, Bren?
It's 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's
not very long.
Let's just listen to it with audio on.
The one thing that we might be doing is kind of like, so our main issue is IGLing, right? No one feels comfortable IGLing. It's like literally just like our biggest issue at the moment. So we're probably gonna try one more thing, like IGL wise. Then yeah, we'll see what happens if that doesn't fix it.
All right. He says.
Okay, so we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it.
Oh, well,
I don't know what he said.
Definitely a good clip.
Good clip though. Seems like he was interested in whatever was going on.
Okay, so to summarize for you two, he just said IGLing's their biggest issue right now. They're going to try one more thing with the IGLs, and then they'll see where it goes. But he seemed pretty down, pretty like, this is our last chance to try and fix the IGL issue with this roster. Otherwise, the implication is that they would have to make changes or bring in an IGL or something like that. I don't know exactly who he's referring to, though, there. They've had Soulcast IGL in the past. They've had Scream secondary IGLing. Yampy was the most recent IGL, from what I understand. I don't think they've ever had Link do it, or Nevera, though. I mean, or Scream primary IGL either, so I don't really know exactly what he's implying there is like their idea now for the future. Did you have any more insight on that, Bren?
It gave me a different lens to look at the Liquid game most recently, because what I pinned a lot of their issues down to was a kind of disconnect in how they wanted to play their macro game plan. So there's just a clip of Scream, was mad consistent on Icebox, by the way. He went 7-0 in terms of first kills to first deaths on Icebox. He popped the fuck off with his rifling. He was getting so much value time and time again. There were moments where you saw he was slightly uncomfortable with the role in the clip that I pulled. But they have Scream. They know it's a fantastic rifler. That's one of their strengths. But they also want to dip into the strengths of the fact that they've got so many players that can play with operators, which if you've got Yampy opping from back rafters on Icebox because you want Yampy to be opping, he's not going to be up close to bail Scream out when he's in this situation with a paranoia. Like it's almost a disconnect in terms of how they play it. Like they have him covering him, so they break the drone, I suppose, so he can play those close angles. But in general, the biggest issues came down to, obviously there was some minor mistakes that snowball out of controls when it comes to these situations. But for me, it was I just took a big macro look at what happened and where the map snowballed away from them. And it came down to decisions like forcing off the back of losing the pistol round, which spun your economy out of control. And then your overall strategy being to use double operator, which is a huge economic investment into the round. And at the same time, it goes opposite to the way that Scream is like taking space actively in A main or wherever. There's this kind of divisive thought process, it feels like, with the way that they're playing the game. And I don't blame the coaching staff for this, because it sounds like from the way Sliggy speaks about the team, he gives Liquid a lot of agency within the game to make their own decisions. And so I think when this team relies so much on their confidence, they're hitting shots, they lose the initial pistol round. I'm thinking, yeah, guys, let's just force. We can win this. But they don't think about how it might affect the overall macro plan. The fact that they want to set up with operators on the players. The fact that they might, want to have Yampy in a situation where he doesn't feel like he has to play up close of an operator to support Scream, because you want to rely and lean on his rifling a lot more. It's that kind of identity. And I don't know if I want to attribute that to the freedom that they have, like the independency in the match to make those kind of decisions. But I don't think it's like pre-planned that they come into it with a thought process to force. And as a coach, you don't want to shut that down, because it showcases like, Well, no, of course I've got confidence in you guys to win rounds that you can force. You guys are skilled enough. You know, you don't want to shut that down. It could be coming across in a negative way.
Sure.
But it kind of shone that light on the series as I was watching this, and I could start to see how it could snowball. And also, yeah, I don't know. In the past, they've definitely showcased that they're very confidence driven. Like if they get to a bad start, they find it hard to rally back in maps.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely tough tournament for them, I think. They definitely don't look like the same team that was doing incredibly well towards the end of last year. I think they really had, if you just want to talk about their defensive setups, they really had like a good game plan for all of their defensive setups about how to use the ops and like synergize their players with rifles with those areas where the operators were holding. And now it just feels like it's a bit all over the place.
This round,
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. Go on, tell me about the round.
This round is a great example to summarize both the strengths of G2. What I was back-chesting about is just this team's just working really well. Nuki's making great calls as the IGL, but also some of the pains of Team Liquid, where they have all this mechanical ability. They find the first pick, Scream's in there with the knives. They get these advantages, but then converting that into round wins is where they've been finding issues. In Icebox, this was all the time. I mean, Scream with 7 first kills to 0 first deaths, he was consistently getting that first pick, but then it's like it just falls to pieces. Like, look at this. They spot the players in the bus stop. They combo just on the fly a Hunter's Fury into the vulnerable with the snake bite. It's like just off the cuff kind of shit from G2 where that showcases they're actively thinking and also fast to act on information that they get. And yeah, this was just I felt like this was the classic round to look at from that kind of perspective, because they end up clutching it. G2 end up clutching this one out, and they secure that first map away when it should have been arguably a round to Team Liquid. They would have been able to stay into it a little bit longer, you know?
Yeah, it definitely feels like when I watch Liquid, it's like the other team has a game plan ready to go. You know, there's someone calling and they have the idea, boom, execute the idea. Liquid, it's a bit like, whoa, what we doing? And that seems like a bit of a problem. But they have their opportunity now to try and address that. And it's not, they've got nothing left to lose. This is like a free roll right now. They haven't earned this spot, but they've been given it. And it's just take a punt and see what happens.
I really hope this is the wake-up call for them, because I think that still the player quality on this roster is insane. We've seen the potential. Like last Champions, this team was looking great. I think the roster changes coming into this year were even better. Like I'm loving seeing Navera into the mix. I think he's been really great, and we talked about we've seen those highs for Team Liquid. Is if they can get this calling sorted out, figure out who might be the best fit for that, or even if it has to be more of like a kind of we're switching between. We have someone doing the mid-rounding, someone doing the pre-rounding. Like that's fine. They just need to find the flow that works for them. And I think that with some of the pressure off, also in a LAN environment, which we've seen this team is pretty solid in, like, I don't know, my hopes aren't that low. I think that they can still deal some damage. I think that they're obviously incredibly lucky to be afforded this opportunity, and I think that they will have that that work ethic to be able to put it on in and hopefully have the improvements we're talking about, because you can still see, like, despite the lack of game plan, the potential is there. If they can get these couple issues sorted, I like their chance.
Well, let's talk about North America.
I hear
yes!
Sirens. I hear
I love
sirens
North
as soon as
America!
that starts. Just coming through the mic.
Yeah, about North America, I'm going. Bye.
Oh, okay.
Damn, what the fuck?
Well,
Okay.
Bren, I guess, is getting his package or something, so we'll jump cut for a moment. We're back.
I take it back. I do care about North America.
There we go. That's what you're supposed to be saying. Thank you.
Fired for saying that. That's a joke. I won't get fired, but
Well,
we
you
can
might
bring
get
back
fired.
your caster a bit.
What's
where
that?
I was
What did you
every-
get fired from? You don't
every
have a.
coach stream, it was the oh boy, I don't want to fuck up my big break. Oh, all over the place. And now we can bring it back. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get fired for a gag.
We might fire you from Plat, chat. If you don't like North America, you're not welcome here. Let's talk about the Guard. The Guard, they literally won the North American VCT. I still can't quite believe that, but
I can.
They went on a god run. I mean, that's an absurd run. They lost to Cloud9 in the group stage, and then I mean they lost to OpTic in the upper finals too.
Yeah,
and they just look insanely good in that lower bracket final and grand final. They looked nuts.
Yeah, I need to hammer home for people at home to understand just how ridiculous this storyline is in esports. Like, I followed multiple games, not obviously the same all at the same time with as much scrutiny, but like in my time of just being super into CS way back in the day, Dota as well, Overwatch as well, just following that.
You were into Dota? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry for your
I
loss.
actually casted Dota for a little bit as well. Yeah, I played a ton of it as well, but not as much these days. But anyway, there are some miracle storylines from Dota's like TIs of teams going on lower bracket runs or OG playing with their coach. I'm pretty sure it was OG playing with their coach. But this is also just a ridiculous storyline that I think people do recognize it. But this team, Trent joined it, I think, January 16th. I think the core of the roster has existed for like 4 months, and they have gone from rookie team to representing North America as the #1 seed on the global stage at Reykjavik in such a short amount of time. In such a short amount of time. It's insane. It's actually insane. The storyline is madness, and you can just tell how much it meant to every single one of the players when Valen was doing the interview at the end after they won against C9. Man, these guys have just been grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding, and what a timely injection of just a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of the other North American teams as well.
Definitely.
Had no hope for just a squad that could carry the kind of ideas and culture that a lot of the EMEA teams carry, which is just the idea that they take practice incredibly seriously. They're grinders. There's no egos on the team. Everybody just wants to succeed across the board. It felt like we were lost at sea, honestly, with no hope of finding a goddamn island with just, precious moisture that isn't contaminated with salt. We were lost in a sea of salt. North America, just sodium everywhere. But I'm getting lost here.
You are.
Brain fog. Take me out of the brain fog and the one box.
The thing that I said on the broadcast as well, it's not even like this, because having a new team that goes on to win a couple of months later is a bit of a miracle run in and of itself. But to me, it's that the players were actually not that great before this team.
Yeah.
The best placements were, I think, Saya player made like top 8 with T1, where he was playing Omen and like some Jett, but didn't really look that great doing it. And then Jonah P had I think he made closed qualifiers at some point, playing for Immortals, where they just got boomed. And then everybody else has not even really made it that deep in an open qualifier. And then you've got Trent, who didn't even really play on a pro salaried team at all before the Guard. So this is a squad full of players that were not expected to do that well, and yet the way that they've been built by MCE and the fact that they took everything so seriously has led to outrageous success. Valen said they've been boot camping since January. I mean, they've literally been in that place in Dallas since January, living away from home, just constantly 100% focused on the game in that entire time.
And think of how
That's
tough that
outrageous.
is to have that level of dedication too, because think of how young some of these players are. Like I'm pretty sure Trent's 17. What, like, is he still in high school? I think he dropped out of school for this to pursue.
I think
this.
he might still be doing stuff.
No,
actually.
you can still do it. I mean, it happened to a bunch of Overwatch League players where like for example, like Super and some others, they took online high school while competing in the Overwatch League when they were like.
I'm pretty sure he said he dropped out.
Did he say he dropped out?
I mean, I don't know if Trent dropped out. If Trent dropped out, I'm gonna be like, go back to school. At least get your GED. At least get your GED. Get your GED. I don't give a shit if you don't want to go to college. Get your GED, man. Like, at least get that. Like, for love of God. It's like, it's literally just a test of if you can breathe and chew gum at the same time. Like, just go get the GED.
I'm trying to see, like, I swear he did. Okay, I might be being crazy. I'm trying to peruse his tweets. But all that aside, still, like, incredibly young roster, mostly new players. They commit to the bit. They go for the boot camp, which is something that I don't think enough teams in NA have been doing. So first of all, props to the guard, to John Guard, for putting in the money, putting in the time to realize that these are strong players, to put in the effort to not just like switch roles after the initial failures of the team and just put them together and wait for the success to happen, because the success clearly did happen. I think that this is a massive come up for Trent. It's proof of Saya player. But I think the biggest success story for me in this roster is Valen. Because on complexity, he was so mediocre. Like his individual performance was fine. His calling was fine. That was like the first real roster he calls for. But then he comes in, he has the help of MC to develop. And I think his calling is just elevated in such a big way. It doesn't hurt because he has insane pieces to work off of. But like the mid-rounding for this team has looked excellent. The pre-planning between him and between their coach and MCE has been absolutely stellar. Like I think that him especially has been one of those big pieces. And sure, the rest are impressive. Like everyone has their own Cinderella story, but I think that's been the one that excites me most, because we were talking about like teams were even thinking, oh, we have no good IGLs in NA. Let's bring someone over from EU. Let's try and buy someone out from another org. No one had faith in the free agent talent in being these leaders and being these newer people, and they did that and looked fantastic in doing so. And I think it's proof that there is that talent within North America. You just need some level of experience, some level of a coach to mold that.
The VOD we were just watching there as well.
Playing a clip of them getting flawlessly decimated.
Dude, I'm just playing the clips that I'm given, okay? I don't know, like
that was, but it's
that was a clip more about OpTic.
It's just
it was the decider for the who goes on to Iceland. The initial it was only 2 slots
the first time around,
and they looked so much weaker in that initial matchup. OpTic, which I'm not going to talk about into too much detail, but the turnaround that they had when they went from that game where they looked on some maps just lack of confidence, desynced, getting thrown for a loop multiple times in a round when they got into unfamiliar situations, and then you watch them in that Cloud9 game, and if you just you can pick random rounds in the icebox, but you just saw excellency from them. A very close game against Cloud9. Cloud9 played incredibly well, I think, to play them that close, and when I saw that BO5 against them, and I was like, man, that BO5, I think that favors Cloud9. They have a deeper map pool from what we last seen.
I thought
but again, I was surprised by the guards' ability to just bounce back off the back of their losses, off the back of just being able to learn off of a bad map. No other team has been able to have that rapid rebound from one series to the next in such a long time from what I can remember.
Well, they do remind me a little bit of, like what I'm saying with G2 over in EMEA, where they just learn so fast and get better so quickly. That's what I think the guard do potentially even better, because they also just instantly pick up new compositions. This Icebox is not the exact example, but if you're thinking about when they played against Haven, against Cloud9, they had just played a different comp. This was such a good play by Jonah P as well.
Also the dart here too, like playing off the dart. So yeah, it's just so fucking good.
Just lights them up and he's just on top and they're like, wait, what? Yeah. But they literally change their comps around frequently and yet still are able to perform at a really high level. If you think about the narratives in North America before this year, a lot of the teams were like, yeah, we can't really adjust the comps that quickly. Like, this game's so crazy. It's very difficult when the patch is changing constantly. And, you know, it takes you a couple of weeks to refine a new composition and get it up to the top. Cloud9 are like, whoa. Sorry, the guard are like, whoa. It takes us a week and we're good. We can just pick up 3 different comps on Ascent. We can pick up, you know, a bunch of different comps for Haven. We'll change our bind comp halfway through and look like one of the best teams in North America. They just look sick, and it's all effortless for them. And I don't understand exactly how it's so effortless.
I wanna bind for a second.
Incredible.
About what you were bringing up about the comp stuff, not what you're saying, but I think like it was such a like we have had for forever in NA in so many different games, coming from CS, coming into this game, where NA teams have just been like troll in terms of the work ethic. It feels like a lot. I feel like that's been a standard for a while, and I think that these newer teams, I think Cloud9 is a good example. I think OpTic is a good example. I think Guard are a good example. That what it takes in Valorant isn't what you have in the past. Isn't what you can do directly in towards the server every single day. It's the kind of dropping that ego and being able to just constantly innovate, constantly change, and come into every single day of practice with that improvement mindset and work harder and switch things up. Because this game is not one where you can stagnate. Patches are changing, teams are changing. If your comp stays the same, you will get prepared for, you will get read into. You need to put the time in to be variable. And the meta right now allows for many different options to be viable. So that's why I think that these teams are so good. And I think Guard is the best example of that, because fundamentally they just have 5 fantastic players. They have a good leadership staff who's willing to switch things up and that implements these changes really incredibly well. The future for this game needs to be players who can can play a lot of different roles, are comfortable in taking these changes and taking these changes quickly and not having to kind of fluff around and be stuck into the same old for events upon events, which is why I love this team. And it's why it's a team that I really do want to continue to root for, and one that I do truly believe can do well on an international level, because it's not just about their fundamentals. It's about their willingness to learn, their willingness to change, and just having a good attitude generally about playing these games.
Yeah.
The breath of fresh air, isn't it? It really is.
It feels so good. It's like, I thought I was inhaling copium. Finally, I'm back into just inhaling good, fresh NA air. And it's in my lungs, and I'm fucking rejuvenated. I'm vitalized from just the juice.
You're not revitalized. You're vitalized.
I'm vitalized for the first time.
You're not revitalized. It's just the first time you've had life.
They though did get pushed to the limit by OpTic in that BO5 Grand Final, and it was a cool game. The first time they played in the upper bracket, MCE tried to push them into really weird territory with the map veto, so they ended up, Breeze was the third map, which was both teams permaban. You've got like Split coming in there as well, which MCE was hoping that OpTic weren't prepped for, and Bind. This time they just removed Bind. They were like, okay, we got destroyed on Bind. Fuck that noise. We're not going to give OpTic their best map. Sorry, I'm talking about the Grand Final, Kurt. Yeah. The guard are like, no, get Bind out of there. We'll play on Ascent. We'll play on Breeze. Those are somewhere towards the bottom of the guard's map pool. And if you look at Ascent, they actually kept it fairly close, which I was surprised at to begin with. I was like, okay, this is a good sign for the guard. And then when you go to Breeze, which was actually OpTic's pick, it doesn't really matter that it's OpTic's pick because it's a BO5. It's just the order of the maps. But still, the fact that the guard just unbelievably dumped on them. All of the aggression OpTic could not handle whatsoever. I mean, OpTic are clearly weak on Breeze and Fracture, and the guard punished them so heavily for this Breeze map that they let this one through. Yeah. And it was a phenomenal series. You had maps where both teams are good, like Icebox, Haven, Split, you could argue as well. And then you've got maps like this that were just one-sided dominance with Sire player just dunking. I mean, Sire dunked on Haven as well. Had a fantastic, what was it, like a 1v3 to close it out?
For T1? Remember when he was on Omen sitting in a corner for T1? Remember that one?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is T1 actually did try him on Jett for a while, but it was when he first started and he looked again robotic. He looked like he looked like he only had a couple of things that he knew really how to do. That his playbook was like, okay, I dash into smoke, I come out of smoke, I do the job. He's so fluid now and happy to improv in these chaotic situations and plays the 1vx scenarios really intelligently. They've just, all of the players have got better and better and better. It's wild. It really
I really
is.
like, speaking of improvement, Net. I feel like from the debut of the Net Chamber to now, that Chamber I feel like looks really, really good comparatively to where it started. Like I was watching like specifically on like a mechanical, like using the tour de force type of level. Like when he first started, I feel like he wasn't nearly as consistent with it. Now I think Net has like consistent success when he pulls out the ult, like all the time.
On Chamber in the head-to-head or Leaf, but even then it's understandable.
But those are like two of the best players in North America.
Yeah, exactly. Like for someone that's not like a straight star duelist player playing on like an almost duelist role, he looks much better than when he started, in my opinion. I think he gets the value he needs for that comp for him down Chamber to be successful comparatively to where I feel like when he first started out playing it a lot.
Well, I think that was one of the big problems with OpTic when you're looking at how they approach Breeze. When OpTic's Breeze composition has like Marved playing Sky and Victor on the Chamber because FNS doesn't really want to play Chamber, so he has to pick up the Viper. Like, that is just a mess of a role allocation for that team. And it's a big difference when the guard all feel comfortable playing their roles. Like they're just, for people that don't have a ton of experience like Trent, he's playing 4 agents at the top level. He's playing his Sova, Sova, Breach, Sky, and what else does he play for them? He definitely plays 4. I was looking at it recently.
I can tell you once I look at it.
Don't know, I've forgotten.
It's Breach, Viper, Sova, Sky, Breach. Yeah.
Oh, Viper. When the hell does he play the Viper? I can't remember that.
I don't know, but that was 60 days ago. In his 30-day history, for the most part, it's almost exclusively Sky, Sova, Breach.
Didn't he play KO on one map?
No,
Yeah.
not in the past, not recently. It doesn't seem
Okay.
like he's had it. So
What the fuck map does he play Viper on? How am I forgetting that? What? I don't know.
I honestly don't know. I haven't seen him play in a
I'm
long
off the
time,
goop.
so.
It must be Fracture or some shit. It's got to be, right? Anyway.
I think it is Fracture. No, he plays Breach on Fracture. Ish?
No.
I'm confused.
It's 90. It's from 60 days, not in
we're
the
all
past month.
stupid.
It's from 2 months ago. So
We're
it's
all
probably
stupid.
Moving on.
Yeah, just moving on with it.
Let's talk OpTic though. Let's talk about OpTic. They're the team that pushed them in the grand finals too. This team made second place at Masters Berlin. They are North American royalty at this point, I would say. They're a team that's been consistently good throughout 2021. Yeah, they had their ups and the downs. They ended up getting grouped at champions, but this team is looking to redeem themselves after that champions loss, and they look individually a lot better. I think Victor was one of the players that I was highlighting before we went into this grand finals, was just spectacular compared to that champs performance. Where do you think this team is at currently? They were expected to win that grand finals because they beat them in the uppers, but is it even an issue for OpTic that they're seeded into the group stage?
I don't think it'll be an issue. I think they'll still be able to move on through. I think they brought in some good ideas into this, and obviously have some fantastic players. I wanted to talk about that game versus the guard. Kurt was already playing a few of the clips I had grabbed for it, but they implement the M3 C comp, which we've already seen Knights in NA try, and it looked so much better for them. It looked so much better. They've been the only team in NA besides Knights to try out this Neon, and they were the first to do it. And I think on that split, it was set up really, really well. They have these super creative trap plays. They allow Victor to be that kind of forward man, creating space, finding information off a lot of these forward plays when they're combining it off the double flash. This was one, I believe, this was their bonus round, where early on, they went for some aggression over towards A main. And what I like about this round isn't just that they have these preset plays to try for aggression, try and get information. It's how they adapt off it, because they lose a man. It's a little unlucky, but then they pivot back towards their default, and B side ends up being taken, and they look really good in towards the retakes. Like, these util heavy comps play super well, because it means that, first of all, these individuals who we know are great, who are playing these flasher roles on the team, can pop off when they need to and play for themselves, but they can also put Ye in these positions where he can thrive. When he's playing that chamber, he's implemented the chamber really, really well in towards the compositions and can constantly be rotating on over. He kind of giga-boomed them in towards us, and we can talk about that when we get into map number 2, because it was him and Victor just absolutely obliterating when he's on the op. He feels like the chamber role was really made for him, and in this one, I think he kind of screws up his micro and isn't in a position where he can teleport away, and sure, he gets punished, but again, it's just like OpTic being voracious. We hyped up the guards so much about how good they are in the mid round, but I think that as a caller, FNS has proven that he's of incredibly high caliber. They've already proven themselves at other international events. Everyone on this roster has LAN experience, and my biggest issue with them previous was that they weren't a meta-defining team. It always felt like they were lagging behind it a little bit. That's changed. They've proved that they can, in this meta, be a team to push forward and come in with their own ideas and try things new before other teams in NA have implemented it.
Yeah, what I'm still concerned about a little bit with OpTic is that it's that the meta-defining element, because while I feel like they've definitely gone in that direction, okay, they're implementing Neon on Haven, they're implementing Neon here as well. What I'm not a big fan of, though, is that it tends to take them a couple of... they're not as quick to find success with it as some of the other teams. Now, that doesn't apply to their split. Their split, as soon as they picked it up, they looked really good at it. But their Haven, the first time they tried it, looked pretty cap. Like, Victor's just running it down on the Neon. And I think they've changed that up a little bit. In fact, they've changed that up a lot. It looks much better coordinated, and they've got some great ideas with it now. It's still looking like a good comp. They did end up losing it to the guard in that final map 5, but it wasn't, it's not a tragic map for them. But also their breeze, definitely, again, they step out of their comfort zone, trying something different, but they just looked appalling there too. So I'm hoping for that next step. Like, some teams, meta defining, but as soon as they pick something up, they look amazing with it. And I'm thinking about the guard there too, Mech, those kind of teams. OpTic are a bit slow to get off the racing lines, and I think if they try and get a bit too crazy with it in the group stage, it could hurt.
And the thing is, I think there's been a very small sample size, especially since they went through the upper bracket of this one, that I think heading into Masters, you could be very right and they could stumble, but them being able to implement this split comp and immediately find success feels like it gives an example for me of them maybe being able to move out of that.
Yeah, but that's not meta defining. That's meta theft.
No, that is true. That is true. But in its own way, that's a definition. They're kind of thieves.
But I mean, we're late enough now into the meta, I feel a bit to where, like, obviously, I wouldn't say this particular meta has been solved by any means, but we're late enough into its entry to where I'm perfectly fine with them committing thievery as long as their duplication of it is like a very good dupe, you know?
Sure.
Like,
I think this
that's
was a very
fine.
good dupe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's what's important to me. The more important to me is not even just about them. It's not just about their meta. It's also about, more importantly, it seems like they are seemingly very comfortable and they can have Victor now play a role where he can fit and actually flex into these different roles they need him to.
Yeah,
because that was an issue with them before.
Not even Victor. I mean, Yay, if we want to talk, your topic earlier about Net's chamber improvement, I think by far and away surpassed by Yay's chamber improvement, in my opinion, because when we first saw that come out, when they played it on Bind, it looked... He wasn't doing anything interesting with it at all. He just had the rendezvous down like he was playing Jett, just playing the same angles, not really getting too much value out of it, and it really hurt them when it moved on to attack side. Now Ye is playing these creative positions. He's able to entry op in an absurd capacity. I looked up his stats, actually. He gets more kills per round with the op on attack than he does on defense. That's crazy. That's wild when he's playing chamber, that he's getting more value, like sneaking into these positions, booming net a lot when they were playing in the direct split head-to-head. He's at the beginning, it felt like he took a step back from being the star player, and now I feel like he's taken that step forwards again into, all of the resources still go into Victor, but Ye can still carry a game, like hard fucking pound in a game.
Can we look at the clips from the second game of that map? I think I sent a couple to you, Kurt, because the thing is that this was a great example in their Bind game about using Victor and Ye separately, but as two tools to just absolutely boom. I think Victor being freed up to play this raise on pretty much every map that you'd want to implement the raise has been such a big improvement for this team. The aggression with the boom bots and with the nades to hold on to extremity control. Ye playing those really weird ratty off angles. You talked about their split game when it was versus the guard. He just he giga tilted net with the constant early frags with the op, and it was a similar story in towards this series as well, where this guy was forward every time on defense, and that doesn't change when he's on the attack. We have too many chambers in NA that just kind of bait and just kind of sit back and play the funny trademark and try and get value off of it. But it's like in this setup, it's been looking a lot better. And I would say that in a way, even if he struggled at first, Ye has been defining in what chamber means in its implementation in towards NA. I think that their Bind setups early on, it didn't come up in that Rise series, but after that, it was looking really good. His split implementation has been really good. He's found setups like the teleport between the two sites that he does, the forward angles in B main a lot of the time in split. People are yoinking that from him. I think it's a little unfair to say that OpTic, well, sure, they sometimes do struggle when they pull these new comps in, but whether it's stealing stuff or whether it's implementing their own stuff, there are still a lot of these really good moments from them that give me hope. Yeah,
I still think that coming into the Grand Finals, I thought that their peaks were the highest we'd seen in North America. And I also thought they'd fixed the inconsistency issues that looked like were plaguing them at the beginning of the year too. I still don't think that Grand Finals was a bad performance by any means. I think it was just the map pool looks a little deeper for the guard once you get rid of Bind, which I mean the guard is still really good at. They just got rolled by OpTic. OpTic looked fantastic at this map. I think OpTic can do some serious damage. I really do. I think as long as Victor's firing on all cylinders, this team, I think North America's got two fantastic teams heading to Reykjavik. Do you feel more confident about NA or EMEA, the top two teams? If we ignore Liquid, if we're talking North America versus G2 and Fnatic, obviously, it's a bit weird because FPX isn't there, but just the teams that are actually going. Which region do you feel better about?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's honestly I feel like if FPX had managed to go to this event, I'd be like, ooh, I'm feeling pretty good about EMEA, But with FPX not making it,
and Fnatic's got Brave AF as well,
and Fnatic losing Brave. I mean, I have an extreme amount. I am a tier 3 sub to the guard, is the thing. I am a huge guard. Here we go. I have believed. I have been the believer here of the guard, I feel. Like, even more so, like, even when they lost to C9, like, I was still holding the banner. I was waiting for the guard to pounce back, and they did. I believe in the guard.
Oh,
I
by the
actually
way,
think OpTic looked really good too.
Just
so,
about
like,
this,
but-
none of us were correct with our bold predictions from North America about which two teams would make it
But
through.
we each got one. We each
Yeah.
got one. I
Yeah.
got OpTic. The rest of you guys got guard. Everything's happy. Everything's
Yeah.
good. Enjoy
Exactly.
it.
I
Yep.
think so. I do believe. I love the guy. I wasn't even on this episode, so it wasn't even for. I didn't have but mine would have been the guard and C9. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
And we don't
that's
talk
the-
about Exet, but my God, disappointed.
Yeah, that's just
Disappointed.
4th place again for Exet. Just, yay.
Smile.
Same thing.
So, yeah,
Smile.
I believe in the guard.
All right, I'm gonna take a big huff of my NA copium, and I'm gonna say that NA is gonna do better. I have faith in my team. I have faith in OpTic. They've been proven at an international level. I think they're looking better than they have been before as a team for all the reasons I've already talked about. And I'm just a fucking guard fanboy. I don't know how they're gonna do it LAN. Only one of them has real LAN experience. I don't care. I love MC as a coach. I love the players on this team. I'm just blindly throwing my faith into the wind and believing in the guard.
Dude, those kids are going to be drilled up, okay? I believe, like, based off their boot camping strategies, they're going to be the most disciplined. They're going to be
Dude, it's
fucking
like a
rank and
fucking
file
military
order, a
drill.
military parade
Yeah.
marching into the venue for the guard. They're going to be like, MC is going to bugle. They're going to sit down at their PCs and they're going to fucking go.
And
Like,
you're
I'm
gonna
telling
fucking
you.
inspect their mouse.
That
Is that
team's gonna
is that
dominate.
a speck of dust on your G Pro? That's another fucking 10 hours of scrims today.
Do a couple of laps around the lake.
Oh, God.
A lot of people are like, not a lot of people, but a narrative that's kind of developed around the guard being at #1 seed is the concern that they might choke from inexperience.
Mm.
And I think if they were going to choke from inexperience, it would have happened by now, because we've literally seen them go through week 5, rough game against Cloud9 where they didn't showcase it. They bounced back into the playoffs with new looks onto the meta. They go through the upper playoff bracket. They get knocked down again. We're thinking, okay, they're playing against Cloud9. This time it's a BO5, and it's an actual pressure match with a lot on the line. And they end up winning against Cloud9. You know, when honestly it was all pointing towards Cloud9 should have been winning it. So yeah, I know we're talking about OpTic in general, but it is interesting the way it's worked out with them getting to buy it deeper into the tournament, especially now that we know how the format works. It's like the guard will have a week where they're not playing games at the event. They could play very little games.
Yeah. It's a weird one, actually, because I feel like from the guards' point of view, of course they love to skip straight to the playoff stage because you have no opportunity of you know stumbling at the beginning and getting grouped. But also probably those group stage games would have been good to get a bit of the confidence going, a bit of the experience going, that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying it's really like a double-edged sword, like it's perfectly even with the pros and the cons, but they are getting thrown straight into the deep end. You're getting immediately chucked into an upper quarterfinals match, and you can only lose once. Whereas if you go through the group stage, you can technically.
I mean,
lose
their
twice.
first round match could be against like a second CDU team. It could be against like a DRX. It could be against like one of the top LATAM teams. Like
Loud.
it could be against like a Crew or a Loud, depending on which one of them gets to buy into the playoffs. Like the first round playoff game will be incredibly tough. I honestly probably see them losing that and praying that they bounce back in the lowers. That's probably my expectation.
The thing is, though, too, because they've qualified already to the quarterfinals, they should be playing the second seed from the groups. So it's not, you know, that whatever team they go up against will have already lost once when it comes
That's
to
true.
Reykjavik. So it's
No,
it's
but isn't
more,
how it
more
works
doable.
the teams that get it on in automatically? Because it's 8 teams, 4 auto qual, right? And then it's 4 from the groups. Because there's
It's 4
2
from the groups, yeah, which means that the 4 teams that are seeded into the playoffs that will. Wait a second.
I think there's a chance they could play a 1 seed.
Yeah, maybe there is. Yeah, they could play against a 1 seed. I
think
don't know
there's a
how the
chance they
fuck
could
they're
play
going to do
either.
this.
I don't know how it'll be seeded.
I'm
but
lost.
It'll be tough.
Yeah.
It'll be tough.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
It will be difficult.
Esports book that's on the shelf. Maybe that'll have the answers. Take
Oh yeah, let me have a
Yeah.
look.
Read the book of esports.
a look at it.
What does Ninja have to say?
Okay, what does Ninja have to say? Ninja says, think instrumentally. So think about your instruments.
I'm thinking about my instrument every day.
I
So-
picked up the piano like 2 hours ago, 2 years ago.
This is a fantastic page that I've opened it up to. It says, so you want to be a professional gamer? Then get ready to work for it. I think the guard read this page. I think the guard literally read this paragraph in yellow right here. And they were like, Ninja says I've got to work hard. So I'm going to do it. We're going to work all day, every day, and I'm going to live my dream. That's what they're doing.
Tyler Blevins is the spokesperson for esports in North America.
Well, yeah, of course.
The Esports Commission, the Integrity Commission.
You know, interestingly enough, there was actually a completely aside, but to start a new ramble. Apparently the ESIC part of the ESIC investigation about the coach bug is supposed to be finished before the Antwerp major for CS. It's coming out. ESIC is finally putting out investigation results.
Well, are they just gonna drop it right before the major? So like 5 coaches just get DQ'd. That'd be so funny. I don't know, but
apparently that's happening.
Well, good thing.
For competitive integrity. Where's DS podcast now?
Our last topic, though, to get through here is some of the teams from North America that didn't quite make it. So, we discussed a large crop of teams in EMEA because some of the teams that didn't make it actually still made it. But in North America, the 2 teams that went undefeated in the group stage, the 2 teams that we thought were... Okay, last week we didn't think they were a lock for groups because they were literally playing against each other in the lower bracket, so that would have been impossible. But at the beginning of the playoffs, we thought Cloud9 Version1 looked like the 2 best teams in North America. So the last week's episode, we were beginning with their game against each other, actually, in that lower round 2, and then Cloud9 went on to make a run where it looked like they had a chance, and we were prenning them even last week to be able to make it through. What are your thoughts on these 2 teams heading into the future? Because while the future looks just unbelievably bright for teams like the Guard, who are already at the top of North America as a really young team, for C9 and Version1, they made amazing moves, or at least Version1 made amazing moves. Cloud9 have already had success in the past. Do you see them continuing to slip? Is it a worrying factor that they weren't able to capitalize on this success, do you think, Mimi?
I don't think so. I think this is going to just be a fucking even more of a wake-up call. We've already seen the work ethic is really good for both these teams, constantly changing the comps, a new IGL for V1 who's implemented quickly and is immediately finding success. I think that for Version1 especially, I'll talk about them first. This was their first real big tournament as a team where they found this much success. And I think it's only going to power them up to want to do better and to put more and more work on in. I think they're going to continue to be a strong team on in because even when they lost. Sure, they got upset. They had an unlucky day versus LG, but that's just kind of how the cards were drawn, right? Still in the matches that mattered, like I thought they looked really pretty solid against Sentinel. Sure, they got boomed when Tens had like the one game where he woke up in time and popped off. But I still thought that they looked like a solid team in that match. They put up a really solid fight against Cloud9, and sure they've stumbled. I think that's just gonna lead them to put in even more work, even more time, and come back stronger. Like they're fucking having their anime protagonist arc. They got knocked down. They're coming back stronger. I don't watch anime. I don't know how all that works, but I'm sure they're charging up right now. I'm so relatable right now. Please be related to me.
Is that an anime arc, Bren?
Yeah, isn't that a classic trait of humanity? Just
no, only like anime has done that.
Only in anime.
No human being has ever had to suffer to defeat and come back stronger ever. As far as I'm aware, that's never been a trope ever in anything. Like there's a revolutionary movie called Rambo. Not Rambo. Fucking Ram. Wait, is it Rambo? What am I thinking?
I love Rambo. That's my favorite.
Rambo. Why Rambo? I'm thinking of a Minecraft streamer called Rambo.
When he gets knocked down and
yeah, but also it's Rambo.
I went to the Rocky Stairs. They're a real thing in Philadelphia. Apparently, I walked up them. I'm literally Rocky.
Is
Rambo the story of someone getting knocked down and coming back up? I
thought Rambo was the story of someone just fucking massacring a bunch of Vietnamese people.
First of all, that's not. Well, it depends on which Rambo you're talking about. Because the first Rambo, it's like just a PTSD story of him being harassed, and then like the second Rambo is like him being escaping Vietnam.
I haven't seen any of them.
The third Rambo.
Stalker arc.
No, the third Rambo is more of a geopolitical thing because he's in Afghanistan helping the Taliban before they became the bad guys.
He's helping the Taliban?
Yeah, because it's essentially this whole thing about how we help the Taliban fight the Russians. It's a big thing.
Yes,
it's a big thing. It's a big
the
thing.
USSR invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Okay, well, didn't expect this to take a hard geopolitical turn.
Yeah. Well, my point on that, I think Cloud9 both Cloud9 and Version1 are still really good. Like Cloud9 lost to the Guard. They had a good match versus them. They had a good run in the lower bracket, right? After losing to OpTic, another very strong team. And Version1, to Mimi's point, is still newer. They're like continuing to grow as a squad. They lost to C9, like another very, very strong team here. I don't think there's anything to
I think it's
worry
good that
about
they
these squads.
lost.
Yeah, like losing here for both these teams against good, very, very good teams, like the arguably the two best teams in North America, while putting up good performances. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, you know?
This hurts my Leaf being the best player in North America stocks because it's quite difficult to be the best player in North America if you don't have that opportunity to prove it at the international.
I'm still putting him in my
I think
top
you
four.
just blame your teammates. My team fucking sucks. I'm still the best player in NA.
Well, you can still put a hypothesis out that he is the best, even if his team, like the best players aren't always necessarily on the best team.
Here's the thing: the best
but
player
other
has to
people
suffer setbacks. It's like his coach on the Rocky steps pushing him down the stairs so he can climb back up again.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think Cloud9 are missing something right now, though. I think this team is more talented than some of the other rosters that, I mean, specifically, the stuff that the Guard is doing incredibly well in terms of their discipline and team play seems to be lacking a little bit with C9. I'd love to see them tighten that stuff up to like get a bit more of a handle on the individual crazy plays that are being made, the level of fighting. From like, you know, Leaf and Zeppa taking individual solo challenges. They're so good, they often make it work. But I think it's created this team dynamic that's mostly focused in that direction rather than the ultra disciplined, ultra drilled kind of stuff that we're really seeing from a lot of the great teams in the world right now. Some of the EMEA teams and the Guard as well, and Version1 to some extent too. But this Cloud9 team is too talented to not be going to international events like this, I think. And I understand that they're up against insanely other talented rosters like OpTic and like Guard, but this team should be making the big events. And I think it needs to be a little bit of a wake-up call for them that this team's already fantastic, but they could be hands down the best team in North America. And I think that should be their goal. Not just making it, but like crushing the rest of North America. I think that's... If you want to like hype yourself up and get motivated to improve even more, that should be the goal for this squad, I think.
There's a world where they would have had a much closer series against the Guard in that decider match. Like the best of 5 in the lower finals, the one that decided for them to go there. It's not this one here, but they had a very close icebox against them. And the split game on the second half of Split was so important. And their overall decision-making just lost them it, I feel like. Because already, if you remember the split game, if we can pull up the VLR so you can see just kind of the round differential. And you look at this. They've got a huge advantage heading into it, right? The Guard only managed to get the 4 rounds on attack side, and now Cloud9's side swap around. They lose the pistol round, and that round 14, they actually choose to force, which... I've spoken about this a little bit. They do that so much. Cloud9 force off the back of pistol rounds. I counted them up in group stage. I haven't updated it in a while. They won once and they forced about 6 times, I think, in group stage. They forced 6 times. They only won once, and it makes for way harder maps than they otherwise would have. Well, I don't know if they've actually ran the numbers from their scrims, because that's presumably where they're getting this from, this confidence play, where they're forcing. But the numbers don't add up. And what it led to was them actually just having shit economy all the second half of that split game and just dropping out. They lost their entire advantage that they managed to accrue on the other side of that split game, which was the decider map. It was a decider map.
The thing that bothers me too is they frequently do it when they're up. Like they are up in that situation, 8-5, even after losing the pistol.
Risks?
Exactly. You don't want to introduce the variability at that point. This is... When you make the decision to force, this becomes a massive swing round where either you crush the Guard or you let them back into the game. Why not choose the lower variance option of just being ahead of the Guard with better chances of being able to close out the game? It doesn't matter if it's close if you win. You don't need to dominate them, 13-5 or whatever. You can just hold on to your advantages. I think, that's been a bit of a bugbear for me as well when I've been thinking about C9.
The reason we didn't see it as much until it reared its head in the very deciding, important match, which is this one here, the reason we didn't see it is because they were winning a lot of their pistol rounds, which normally they're middle of the pack, actually, in VCT. They're middle of the pack for it. I think the last time I pulled the numbers was 44% in terms of their pistol round win rate, like their odds of winning it based on the overall numbers. But in their most recent matches, they won almost all of them. So we didn't really see it that much. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But when they did that, I was molding, man. I was molding because it just set them out. It was a downward spiral, and then suddenly it's 8-8.
Did you see? Okay, Kurt, I haven't pulled this for you yet, but EMEA, the coach of version 1, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but it's related. EMEA posted a tweet that was a quote retweet of Xander, who had clipped their comms when they decided in their match to just force buy and defy their coach, and they were just like, should we do it? Should we do it? And they just sent it. They literally just full sent it on Fracture, which must have been against, was that against C9? Yeah, here it is. So this is Xander's tweet, and he said when the force buy against Cloud9 didn't work, and I think there's subtitles for this as well. Yeah. They're saying like, we're actually doing it. Wait, what are we doing here? Let's have some fucking fun, says Xander. And then Effie's is saying Ian is pissed, Ian is EMEA, and they're just talking, they're just giggling and laughing about how mad their coach would be. And then Xander, it's 8-5 right now, and they're like, we've lost, guys. We went out playing our own game. They haven't lost the map. They haven't lost the match at this point, but they're already in their head like, oh, we fucked it.
To be fair, I like stuff like that because it shows that the morale isn't necessarily low.
No,
you know?
It's joyous whimsy.
Yeah, it's joyous whimsy, and you need like there's times where teams there is such a thing as being too lax. I think like having too much whimsy. Like when the whimsy is simply it stops your red blood cells from acquiring.
What's the right amount of
oxygen,
whimsy, Connor?
You know,
how much whimsy should I have?
You have to. I'm not a scientist. Okay, I don't have the exact proportions of like how much per milliliter.
How many milligrams of whimsy should I ingest?
All I know is that sometimes you have too much whimsy, but I think in this case they have just the right amount because it shows that like okay, they're getting outplayed, like they made a play, it didn't work. Like, oh well, like frustrating, but we can still come back. You know, like that's what I want to see from version 1, which is a young team, which is like a team that like we are willing to take chances, lose, and then learn from them and improve on like the things that we did, and like not catastrophize it.
Yeah. Both of these squads, though, I think are still looking good, and frankly, the overall crop of North American teams is still looking great. I think that's part of the reason that XSET finished 4th again is just because even though they improved with Cryo, everyone improves around them, and they're improving it. They're pretty much the same rate as their competition. So, I mean, me and Bren casted that game where Cloud9 beat up on XSET, and it was just disgusting. I mean, 12.5 is like, okay, GG. Go next tournament.
Yeah. I mean, they just got absolutely boomed in that match. I thought that the second one was solid from them, but really it felt like there was a lot of unforced errors from Cloud9. Like the end of that split game, there was just I think the round that ended it was just really troll from Cloud9. They were just like walking into an op dry, just making these mistakes. Like I think that was one of the rougher matches for Cloud9 in that split game versus them where they were making a lot of mistakes. It was still a solid performance from XSET. Like BCJ was having a heater of a game. I'm personally still not a fan of that comp they're running, but I think they make it work for them. Yeah, this is the round I'm talking about where they just walk heaven and just get repeatedly boomed by Cryocell. I think he gets like 3 kills in this round just from them giving him like free fights in towards heaven. It was just some questionable moments, but they've still bounced back and they still stomped on map number 3. Cloud9 is still a solid team, even if they have these failures on occasion. And Split is a map that they haven't played in a while. I still think fundamentally their ideas of how to play this map are solid. They just haven't had a whole lot of experience with it, and will need some time to bounce back. I think Cloud9 will still be a very solid team, even if they start. And I still think XSET will be a solid team. I know we didn't really slot in too much time to chat about them, but Bren, your XSET copium was really high. You thought they qualify. I never agreed with that
because
but I thought this team was looking better than ever.
Dude, Cryo was looking so good in playoffs, and I was like, finally, the key component that was required for him to have success. But the team was just so deflated in this match against Cloud9. Like this is the exception of their split game, but I felt like how close it wasn't a good sign for XSET in the first place because it was their map pick, I'm pretty sure.
But I also think here's what I take away from North America as a whole, both XSET, Guard, everything. The player quality additions like Cryo coming into the team aren't the solution currently. I think it's about your approach to the game. That I think is the big difference. I think that Cryocells is a better addition than Sire player to a team. Remove all context, just purely Jett new addition to a team. I'd pick Cryo, and I would have done that at the beginning of the year. I would have thought, Cryo being added is going to be huge for any squad. If XSET had picked up Sire player, I wouldn't have expected them to improve as much. But I think the approach, the way that you actually get into the game and think about it, and your setup, setups and how you're practicing and how much you're practicing. All of that kind of stuff ends up being way more important than just player quality. And it makes your players look like they're higher quality because they have that teamwork aspect down and they're taking better fights and they're better timed with it and they're better set up with utility. So they end up getting more frags. I think that's the narrative to be pulling out of North America right now. It's the approach is improving from some of these teams. So let's go to our final topic for the week. It's the most important every week, and he's not here yet, but he will be next time. It's Wyatt's Weekly Award.
Well, you've seen this trophy before. Wyatt's Weekly Award. But who's getting it this time?
I'm not even
Who's
sure
getting
what
that trophy.
What is this trophy?
It's the
Is this
Oscar
supposed to be
special.
Is this supposed to be like debate club trophy or
You're
something?
no. It's the Oscar special. You've got the podium and you're
I
Just
see.
handing it
So
over.
I see.
I see. I get it.
Tie-in to
It
the
was-
recent global events that show that we're up to date with the world.
Yeah, we're doing a cross promotion with TMZ now. So.
Yeah, just make the thumbnail Will Smith slapping. Was it Chris Rock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God, Bren, you watch media? You're so up to
Please.
date and relatable.
I know actors.
My entire timeline has just been taken up with people giving their takes about whether or not that was appropriate, and I
All I
want to
do is game.
All I
you
want to
know?
do is give Wyatt's Weekly Award to somebody. That's all I want to do. This week, Wyatt's Weekly Award is going to Angel, the IGL, the player for FPX. I think it's an unspeakable amount of stress for this guy over recent times. He was in Ukraine. His family was there as well. It's been a terrible time for everybody involved in that from on the ground floor in Ukraine. He managed to get himself safe. He was returning to the games as a stand-in. He played Jett. He fucking clowned on people playing Jett at a really old age. Do you understand? He tweeted that tomorrow you will most likely lose to a Jett played by a guy older than you. He tweets at Carlos. And then he said, when I say most likely, it's not that I doubt about you losing. It's just whether or not Artis is ready to play. I mean, the spice is there. The performance is there. And listen, this is no appearance at Iceland, but it's the best that we can do here on Plat Chat. So, head up, King.
Some say more prestigious than the Iceland Trophy.
Yeah, I doubt the players care about it quite as much, but
Absolutely not. But some say that.
yeah, some say that. Wyatt
some
says
do.
that.
I've heard many people say that actually.
Everyone's saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, head up, King. You can do it next time. And I think we should be looking forward to FPX's performance as they go into stage 2.
Just hearing you say "head up, King" is such a slap in the face. Like you're the most millennial person I know. Like
You find Josh to be the most millennial person. Josh
Connor-
doesn't know any of the cultural references from
Connor,
his own
what you don't
generation.
understand is Mimi's such a zoomer that when she says most millennial, it's the equivalent of us saying
it's
most
equivalent of
boomer.
you saying "boomer."
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, you're so old you didn't even get that reference. At least
that's
I'm
a
tapped
shame.
into
So
the youth.
I'm fucking owned now.
Like you look like you would move to an up and coming neighborhood in a fresh, exciting city and make 6 figures and have a kitchen that primarily has a teal light blue thing, and you just bought a KitchenAid, and that's the most exciting purchase of the year.
First of all,
You
you're the
love
one-
Harry Potter.
You've just massacred me. You just hit
Yeah,
me with
I mean-
every single point possible. I mean, that's exactly what I did a year ago. I moved to Austin. I got a big kitchen. I'm not going to talk about my salary, but it's not
How about
bad.
you have granite countertops? How about your rent is over $1,000 a month?
Well, to be fair, if your rent is over $1,000 a month, you probably are just alive for the most part.
Live, yeah.
You're probably just a
Hanging
living
on.
human being in the current situation.
I just tried to do something nice for Angel, and I'm getting fucking slaughtered.
Yeah, I don't know. Mimi's a little
I'm sorry,
aggressive.
guys. Maybe that was a bridge too far, guys. I'm sorry.
I think it was
murdered
fine.
me.
You can keep
murdered
going.
me.
Just keep
You know,
roasting him.
we all need to get fact checked sometimes. We need Mimi to fact check us on just put us
We
in our
should,
place
we should
occasionally.
also transition like the end of the Wyatt's Weekly Award into like a stand-up comedy session. Where each
I'm
of
gonna
us
go put
has
on
an
my suit.
opportunity- Each of us has an opportunity to just
We're standing
say
up.
some lines, that we've cooked up. We've been reciting it in our bathrooms. We all turn up to the Plat Chat episodes just sweating and nervous because we know what's coming at the end of it.
Okay, well then,
We're gonna have to
Bren,
perform.
this week you get to deliver a 1-minute bit of your stand-up.
I don't have it planned. I didn't recite it. That's why I
just
tell
give
you.
me
you're
your-
already-
give me
you're
your
already good.
sample.
You're already
A
good.
preview.
Amateur comedian. You don't know the material.
Preview?
Yeah.
It's a preview.
So, you guys, who here invests in cryptocurrency?
Investing in crypto.
Am I right?
Turn it off, Kurt.
How about
Turn
the
it off.
market? The traffic. Sorry, I meant to say the traffic.
What about the market?
So I was flying on a plane the other day, and it was
prices.
American Airlines, and they brought this food, and how about that airplane food, guys?
Airplane
Am I
food,
right?
huh?
Oh, this is going on the blooper reel. This is all going on the blooper reel we're releasing at the end of the year.
This is paining me on a deep level. That does it for episode 85. We'll be back next week. Like we said earlier, we will be covering the minor regions. We will hopefully be doing group bracket, what do you call it? Predictions and pick'ems and stuff like that. Maybe hit power rankings up. Fuck, are we going to do a top 20 list and leave Durka off it again? That sounds like Bants.
We might. We might.
Who are we going to scorn this year? We'll see. Tune in next time for episode 86 and you'll find out. All right. Bye.
See ya.